Support the show and get your Everyone Loves Guitar t-shirts, hoodies, and mugs at guitarmerch.com, where you'll also find other cool music and guitar t-shirts. That's guitarmerch.com. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. And I'm sorry, we just had a good laugh here with me and Jace Everett. Jace has been on the show a couple of times. A great guy. He's got a new EP out, and I wanted to talk about it. Check this out. Listen to this new effect. Everybody, Jace Everett.
It's just like a gig. They had to wait for the sign.
That's the extent of my engineering capability.
That's amazing, man.
How cool is that thing? I love it.
You're a broadcaster.
I've arrived. Anyway, if you don't know Jace, which I'm sure you do, and if you don't, you should. This is what happens when you laughed a lot before. Jace is probably best known for his song Bad Things, which is the theme song for True Blood. He's actually been a prolific creator over the last 15 years, however, making rock, ambient music, singer-songwriter, Americana, and blues favorite. I've gone through his whole catalog. Jace is a super talented guy, so if all you know him for is Bad Things, do yourself and your family and your mom and your dad and whoever you love a favor. And Jace, listen to his catalog. He's got some great stuff, especially the stuff he's he's done a lot of work in sync space outside of True Blood. He also teamed up with his friend and another guest of ours, Amun Marood, AMUND MAARUD. Tremendous blues guitars out of Norway. They did a rock project that immediately got an HBO sync, and they'll have a new album out this year, hopefully, under the band name Rouse. Jace's new solo EP is called Way Down Here. It's out right now, so please check it out. The first two singles came out earlier this year, and they're called Give Until It Hurts and Dance With Me. Jace and I became friends over the last few years since I had him on, and I'm having him on today to talk about this new record. He's also featured in another project I'm involved with in a behind-the-scenes interview about his music licensing career and a list of mistakes. He talks a lot about the mistakes to avoid making if you're getting into music licensing, and you can find that in our music licensing program at musiclicensingprofits.com. Also, I'm going to put Jace's original interview on the tail end of this one because it's a really cool conversation. Oh my God, I'm exhausted, Jace. Just like
are we done?
Dude, thank you so much for coming back on, man. Everything good?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. It's very generous of you. I appreciate it. I've been following since before we did our first interview. I started catching up on your podcast, and it's amazing just the amount of people you've had on and the caliber of people you've had on. I mean, you've had some massive talent on this podcast, some very famous people, but more importantly, some extremely talented people. So I'm very humbled to talk you into getting me on here, man. It's very generous of you. I really appreciate it.
Dude, of course, it's my pleasure. You know what? When we talk outside of the thing, you're not this nice to me.
No, well, of course not. We're not. You need to call me on FaceTime. Yeah.
I'm like, hey, asshole, what's going on?
There's some ball breaking that happens when you and I get on the phone. Yes, it's true.
All right. Hey, man. Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for all those nice things you said. I'm happy you're here, man. What's anything new going on since we last spoke? New and exciting.
So much, as you pointed out, the new record just came out. Very excited about that. It's 6 songs. I think I've made the decision to only do EPs moving forward because the attention span of the audience, and I include myself in this, there's just so much content that trying to put out 10 and 12 songs at a time seems unrealistic. If you're Beyonce, sure. I think you can get away with that. But
I agree.
But for the vast majority of us, no matter our successes we've had, I think people would rather hear from you with new stuff and greater frequency. So that's kind of what I've been doing. As you mentioned, I did that record with Almond back in 2020, and we're in the middle of making a new one right now. And, of course, I just put out this solo EP. So it's just the pandemic has been awful for all of us in myriad ways, but one of the silver linings for creative people, I think, is that we've had time to create. We haven't been on the road as much. We haven't been doing those kind of things, so it's given us more time to be in our little boxes and make our little fondants, if you will.
Did anything good come out of the pandemic for you?
I guess this just some of the music. I mean, I think Alan and I, we've been really close for years, but we get on Zoom probably 2 or 3 times a week now, even if it's not working on something. In fact, most of the time it's not. We'll spend 90 minutes just laughing, or if one of us is down in the dumps, which
Sure.
one of us usually is,
Right.
kind of pulling each other up. Yeah, there's been some good things that have happened. A lot of personal work on my brain and heart has happened during this. That's all been positive.
Yeah.
Hasn't always felt positive. But
Yeah.
but the end results are turning out to be positive. So yeah, there's definitely been some good stuff. And hey, man, I'm very fortunate.
Yeah.
So many people who really lost all their employment opportunities. Like some of my friends that are really, they make their living just on the road. It's been so hard for them. And of course, countless other people, and the million people who lost their lives and their families. So, I mean, I have nothing to complain about.
I hear you.
It doesn't stop me, but I have nothing to actually complain about.
Yeah. Well, I think most people that got connected with somebody like family or like, you and Ahmed
Yeah.
and, whatever. But I think a lot of people did find positive that, were healthy and stuff too.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about your music and your record. One thing, knowing your catalog well at this point, one thing that's really consistent with you is that when you put out a record, whether it's an EP or an album, everything is very musically congruent. All the songs, it feels like a journey, and I'm supposed to be going on, and all the songs are appropriate in there. And that is, I think that's very deliberate. That doesn't randomly happen.
Yeah, I made a record in 2011 after True Blood happened, and I started just having more liberty. I made this Red Revelations record, which basically was very much that. It was basically like, if I wrote a whole album for True Blood, what would it be like? And that's kind of what the album was, Then right after that record, I put out an album that was completely incongruent. It was like 11 songs from like the Dollar General, just random stuff. And there was some great songs on it, some great records on it, but it was completely schizophrenic. And I learned a heavy lesson from that, because even though there was some great music on that album, and some of my favorite songs I've ever written are on that album, but it's so all over the place that it was really hard for listeners to figure out what to do with it. And since then, I've definitely, it's been like, hey man, pick a lane,
right,
stay in it. And so where I get my yah-yahs out is that I tend to change lanes between projects.
Sure.
But on a given project, I do try and stay in that lane, yeah.
But even like the big, like when you did I don't know if it's a big lane change, if you want to call it that, when you went into, did the, the sound spectrums, what's, I always space out on the ambient music.
Yeah, the Elam.
Yeah, that was really good. I mean, the whole record
man.
I really liked it. And I wasn't sure, because I'm not a guy that like often sits and listens to ambient music, but it was a great record. I really enjoyed it.
Well, that's kind of you, yeah. And that was just that was probably 2.5 years worth of material coalescing, because I didn't like I'm going to make an ambient record. I just started after about 3 songs. I was like, am I making an ambient record? And so then I would only write the pieces when I felt inspired, because it's not songwriting. It's soundscape with elements of melody and harmony, but they're not songs. And so to just sit down and crank those out, I felt would be kind of weird and disjointed. They had to kind of come of their own volition. So I really enjoyed making that. It's super fun, just very self-indulgent, and just in here playing with synthesizers and using my voice and sampling myself and layering it and doing weird tricks. It was a lot of fun. One thing
as I've come to know you more, and I respect this about you, you're very you're very sincere about me. Like, you're not you're a purist. You know, you're not going to put any music down if there's any remote false, unless you're, how do I articulate this? You're not doing anything unless you're all in 100%, unless from your soul you feel it, and that's really cool.
Well, thank you. It's very kind, and it hasn't always been true. That's been something I matured into, and the reason I got that way was because of some things I did earlier in my career where I wasn't completely invested, and now I look back and I'm like, wow, that now exists forever and has my name on it, and I'm not ashamed of it, but I'm not like proud of it. It's
sure.
It's what I did then, and that's fine. But it's hopefully you learn from that and just make different mistakes moving forward.
Yeah, right. That's what I always say. Give me new mistakes. Right.
Yeah.
I'm with you on.
I can always come up with new mistakes. No problem.
Me too. Me too. On Way Down Here on the new EP, the vocals on the record are kind of bad things sounding.
Yeah. Well, everything's in the basement. Everything's low.
Yeah.
It's funny when I sing. I just did a version of Bad Things. There's a new podcast from True Blood. I saw that. Yeah. Yeah, two of the girls from True Blood, two of the stars, and one of the other actors is a producer of it. They're doing one of those podcasts where they watch an episode and go through it and then have on a guest. And they had me on very kindly and
That's
did
cool.
an interview with me. And I did me and the guys did a live, in the studio live recording of Bad Things for the podcast. And what's really funny is how much my voice has changed in the 18 years since that song was recorded. My voice is much deeper now.
Yeah.
And
one of the few benefits of aging.
Yeah, it's deeper and rougher. And so, yeah, this record is very much, there's those singers like Willie Nelson and Ray Charles where no matter what they're singing, you know who they are. They're song stylists. So, they take a song and it always becomes them. I'm the kind of person who I'm principally a songwriter, and so I take my voice and make it the song. So if a song requires me to sing this way, that's how I sing. If a song requires me to sing that way, that's how I sing. I think it's more the Tom Waits approach where you try on different hats and see who the character of this song is, who this narrator is, or who this character is. And so these songs were of a piece where it's all that really low, gravelly, almost very quiet singing for the most part.
But it's man. I mean, it's you. Yeah, the whole thing is.
Oh, for sure. It's. Yeah. I mean, to me, it's just I don't want to just have to be the same guy every day. There's all of us have many legions within our heads and hearts, and I like to let those guys out to play.
We all wear masks, metaphorically speaking. Do you remember that?
Man.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
From the Mask, my kids watched that about 100 times, over and over. Was there like any overall theme, or anything? What was going on in your life maybe when you put the record out? I know the pandemic. It's very much. They're all love songs, which is rare for me. I don't always write a lot of love songs. Love songs are hard for me because I love deeply and passionately, and so to put something in a 3.5-minute song is tough for me to do it without feeling trite. But all 6 of these songs are versions of love songs or aspects of love songs, which is very rare for me. I like what you just said. That's going to be your lead-in quote. I love deeply and passionately. And my wife would say irritatingly. And irritatingly. How long his love, it chafes. I won't ask where. How long have you been with your wife now? We'll be celebrating our 7th anniversary in August. Right on, man. Congratulations. That's good. So for both of us, we say it feels like about 30, 35 years. Wait till it is 30 years. It'll feel like, trust me. You're a multi-instrumentalist. You're a bass player, guitarist, keyboard. What did you play on this? I played nothing on this recording. Really? For the first time in my life. And I've got to tell you. Wow. Oh, I think I found my new niche. Okay,
hire amazing people who do what they do better than anybody, and that's what I did. I had Casey Todd on drums, Brad Jones, my co-producer, played upright bass, Dan Cohen played guitar, and Jonathan Hamby played keyboards. And so we were set up in the studio. We were at Club Roar here in Nashville, and the engineer is in, it's a huge space. The engineer is in this kind of open room, and it's super hip and cool looking. Drums are in the open room way down on one end. B3 and piano are in an open room on the other end. I'm in a large booth. Dan's in the middle of the open room with a baffled amp, and Brad is in the other booth with his upright bass, and every track is live. And then we would overdub like vibraphone, or if Jonathan played piano on the song and we wanted B3, he'd overdub B3. There's a couple of guitar overdubs, some percussion overdubs, but the drums, the upright bass, and the vocal are all live.
Did it free you up? Did you feel like
it was so great, man?
Yeah, okay, that's nice.
Because I am a multi-instrumentalist, but I'm not a session level guy. You know, can I play bass on my records? Yes, and I do. Can I play guitar on my records? Yes, and I do. But I always bring in real guitar players, you know what I mean? It's just because it's more efficient, and they've got a vocabulary that I can't. I can hear it, but I can't always do it.
Sure.
And this time I was just able to focus on really interpreting the lyric and being the character of the song and listening to these amazing musicians take my songs to this next level. That's
really interesting.
That was great.
You said you had a producer, the guy, he was your bass player too.
Yeah, Brad Jones. He's co-produced almost everything I've done in the past 11, 12 years. He also mixed this record.
Okay, the mix is great. Actually, it sounds really good.
Well, part of it was he really enjoyed mixing it because everything was in its right place, because it wasn't swamped with overdubs and layers and layers. It was just, drums, bass, guitar, keyboard, voice. And I told him, I said, I want the voice loud and proud up front and everything else feathered in. And he told me it kind of mixed itself.
Well, this was a vocal album for the most part. I thought it was really. I mean, your vocals were highlighted throughout, and it sounded great. It's awesome. I want to talk about some of the tracks I really enjoyed. And again, I talked to you beforehand. The drumming. I mean, the whole record was great, but your drummer was really like a Swiss watch, man. He carried the whole thing through. It was really nice listening to.
Yeah, that's Casey Todd. He's a great drummer. He's also an amazing keyboard player. He actually played the vibraphone solo on "Give Until It Hurts." That's actually him playing the vibes.
Oh, that's cool.
And doubling it on piano. And he did, of course, all the percussion. But Casey's a great talent. He's living here in Nashville now in his 30s, and he is available to do sessions for people. He does lots of stuff for me at his house. I send him files, and he sends it back. So, Casey Todd is a phenomenal
drummer.
Tool.
A phenomenal tool.
Well, he's also a good drummer. But he's... You said Swiss Army knife, I'm thinking of tools.
Wait a minute.
Oh, wow.
We'll be here till Saturday.
And that was Casey giving a rim shot to his own insult.
All right, Dance With Me. I thought it was such a cool song because it had a lot going on there, and it all worked. It was like a Latin blues track with some really cool twang guitar, and it sounded great. How did you even write that thing, man? That's not easy.
Your camera has slowly pitched back, and now we see the top of your skull and Charles Bukowski.
Oh, the top of my skull. I'm going to blind somebody. Let me fix that. Thank you.
My giant face is pretty blinding, too. I think
of
double threat.
Thank you. Yeah. Woo, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that song, my son is really into Brazilian music, bossa nova especially, and he was doing a record in 2015 that I was co-producing with Brad Jones. And
your son was doing a record?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he was 17 or 18, I guess.
What's your son's name?
Jacques Merlino. I'll send you a link. He's good, man.
Jacques Merlin. Okay.
That was his first record. He put out another full length. He did an EP his freshman year of college, but he's got a song on there called "In Between" that it's a fast bossa, and I just love the feel of it. And I was like, man, I could probably pull that crap off. Let me give it a shot. And that's where the Dance With Me. I had the opening line, the "No more talk of gods and devils, politics and dime store rebels. Tonight I need to get myself in tune." I had that line because I had just been working on a record that was all this heavy God and theology and all this stuff, and I was like, man, I've got to lighten the fuck up.
Was that the last record that you did with Hamond?
That was the Terra Rosa record. That was
okay.
I'm talking like 2015 when the idea came to me. I didn't wind up finishing the song till like 2018.
Okay.
But yeah, it was just I love those grooves too. As a bass player, I love playing sambas and bossas and things like that, and so I just kind of went for it. And then of course you get Brad Jones on the upright bass. His bass playing on that song in particular is just out of this world.
I really like the blues component of that track. I was not expecting that at all. My cameras, let me just fix this. I don't know all these. This is like high tech for me. Sorry.
Well, you went for that rim shot and you fucked yourself. Is what happened.
I know. I'm limited. I did too much.
That's the spirit of Casey Todd getting back at you.
Yeah, at me. I didn't call him a tool. You did.
I said he was a fantastic tool.
Speaking of tools, give until it hurts. The line in there, all I'll ever ask of you is give until it hurts. Is that, I just saw this, did you see Bad Vegan?
I haven't seen that yet. I've heard a lot about it.
Oh my God. It's nuts. You got to see it. But having just seen that, it's about this guy who, it's almost in a way like groomed this woman, kind of like how like a Jeffrey Epstein, those types of predatory people groom, they find others' weaknesses, and that was the whole theme of it. All I ask is that he didn't use those words, but it made me think of that because it was a perfect summary. And I was just curious, what inspired that line and that song?
Well, it's a co-write, that song. My friend Steve Wynn from London was in town, and he's a really prolific songwriter, and we met him on an airplane years back on the road, and he came over, and we'd never written together before, and he came in with that verse idea, very different feel and up an octave, but the verse idea, and I was like, this is cool. This is like it's melodramatic, it's a bit sadomasochistic, but it's also metaphorical. It's not literal, but he came in with a basic idea for those verses, and really quickly we got to a chorus idea. And I think it was just a sense of, when you're first in love, or maybe when you've been in love a long time, you just want to, you're just like, look, man, I will give you everything. It's almost a messianic promise to love this person. I'll be your savior. The great Prince song, "I Would Die for You." It's that kind of vibe. And of course, "Give Until It Hurts" is a Mother Teresa quote.
Okay, I did not know that.
Which I didn't consciously. I think I did know that, but I didn't think about it at all when we were writing the song. It's post writing the song and coming up with promotion ideas and stuff. I've realized, oh wow, that's Mother Teresa said that initially. And
Mother
I'm sure
Teresa and Jace Everett.
Yeah, 2 peas in a pod. 2 peas in a pod. I'll be touring Calcutta this summer.
It's a really good song. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you, man. I really like it too. And then it kind of had more of a 2-beat. Obviously, it's a huge doff of the cap to Leonard Cohen. The vocal approach, and then everything being those melodramatic couplets, some of the religious inferences, hyper romantic. It was kind of a 2-beat, almost country feel when we wrote it. I have a demo of it. I'll send to you. I'm actually going to put all the demos out for all these.
Oh, that'd be really cool
this summer. Yeah, because I think people will get a kick out of. Wow, they really polished that turd. That record is good.
Well, I think that's really cool. I think people would like that.
I've done that in the past, and it's fun, especially for creators, for writers, to realize that, hey, man, this really rough demo of his turned out to be a cool track, so maybe I can have some more faith in my really rough demos and just collaborate with great people. But yeah, Brad had the idea to give it, dun, 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 which is another kind of, it's almost that gypsy kind of, God, what's his name? I'm drawing a blank. Django, thank you. Good Lord. It's kind of got that Django feel to it, and which I felt gave it a little bit more originality.
Yeah. Your voice and the whole... I'm not just blowing smoke. Your voice was great on this whole record. I mean, the vocals were just
Thanks, man.
Stellar,
Thank you.
Man. It was really
Thank
great.
You.
No Time to Kill. It was like a very swampy vibe, great track, and I was curious what the effect was on your voice. Was this like an echo or like a reverb?
Yeah, just verb and delay.
Okay.
Depending on where. Yeah, he didn't do anything. I mean, we tried to keep it fairly old school without being retro. Retro doesn't interest me that much, but Jones is a pretty classic record maker. As far as he's into technology, but he'd much rather just just play it again. Well, you could piece that together. He's like, yeah, I could, or you could just play it again. So just play it again, and I like that. I like that.
Yeah, your voice sounded phenomenal in that. What's the backstory to that song, No Time to Kill?
That's about my wife and I, is where that got inspired from. Especially when we first got married, I had come off of a rough patch, and then I was on the road for 4 months straight, and 3 months. We got married, and then I left the next week for another 3 weeks. And so when I got home, I was in road dog mode, and I couldn't sleep. I went through a phase of having a lot of crazy nightmares, and so there's some quotes from her in that song, and then just kind of a sense of the spirit of her, like, hey, man, it's going to be okay. Just calm down. You're safe now. That season of your life is over. And, there's no time to kill. There's no light to waste. I think we've had our fill of this haunted space. Just like you got to leave those demons behind. And it was, that, of course, was great for me. And then writing the song really helped me put it all into context. Because when you're married, you're going to have problems. You're going to have fights. You're going to have disagreements. That just comes with it. But what that song's about is, even though that reality is there, there's still that underlying peace that passes all understanding, if you will, that this person is on my side. Even if they don't sound like they're on my side in this exact moment, they really are on my side. We're actually just talking about closing the refrigerator door. There's no subtext.
It's always interesting how people find, people that are lucky, like you and like myself, could find women that somehow have this calming effect.
Yeah,
much needed calming effect. I don't know how that happens.
Yeah, it's maybe there are people who are just nurturing, and they realize, wow, that guy needs what I have. You know what I mean? It's like,
no, I think there's some truth to that. Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. Yeah. Well, it's a great track.
Thanks, man.
Did you get anything? You're making a record, you've done so many. Did you learn anything from making this one, or did something? It didn't have to be an aha moment, but did you get some experience out of here that?
Yeah, well, as I said before, one of the big things was the idea of recording my vocals as a performer with a band was kind of revelatory. As a singer, and I am a writer and singer first, musician second or third. There's always that ego need to be like, yeah, and I play bass on this track. Oh yeah, that's me. I'm playing guitar and singing that live. There's that need to be like, see, I'm in the band too. I'm not just the douchebag at the front of the stage. But sometimes you need to just realize you are the douchebag at the front of the stage and just be that douchebag, and then you'll be less of a douchebag. You know, it's
I think it's pride of ownership too. I don't, I think there's a pride of ownership in making a record as well, or any work.
But the thing is, man, I wrote the songs. You know, I arranged the strings. It's like my name's on it. It's like, it's okay, buddy. You don't have to. You don't have to do everything. Yeah. I bought lunch. You know, I did a lot of stuff on this because we made the record in two sessions. We did it on a Monday and a Tuesday. The whole record was just done.
That's
in 2
great.
days.
Wow,
yeah, well,
that's pretty cool.
Brad's that way. He's like, I got stuff to do, so let's record these songs.
That's cool, man. Very good. Do you have a favorite song on the record?
It vacillates. You know, I love probably the song that will be the least popular, which is Way Down Here. Just because it's not, Dance With Me and Give It Till It Hurts both have some commerciality to them. They've got a hook, they've got a refrain, they're short, they're concise. They're like, people who aren't into music could be like, oh, that's cool, that's nice.
Right.
Whereas like, No Time to Kill it's got the hook and everything, but it's long. It requires something of you. And Way Down Here is even longer and has a much different structure. There's a musical chorus, but there's not a lyrical chorus. So it's a little more self-indulgent, but it's also got some things in it that are really a big deal to me as a person and as a writer. So that's probably the one closest to my heart.
Wait, the title track. Is there any? It's like, how do you get radio air? Is there people still listen to radio?
I guess, yeah. I mean, Lightning 100, the station here in town, who we've been doing some advertising with, and I just did an on air with them, and played a couple of songs with them. I think they're interested in some of the stuff, but the stuff I make doesn't fit into a format. So it's like, on commercial radio has country and it has adult contemporary and it has, the Jack FM stuff, which is like the greatest hits of the last 30 years. I think people that listen to radio, terrestrial radio, are less into listening to, and this is not a denigration, but I feel like they're less into the music than they are into the culture of a given radio station.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
It's like, so I don't know, in Tampa or in Nashville, there's a given radio station where it's like, this station is kind of emblematic of my lifestyle.
What, man? You are 100% correct on that.
And I actually think that's cool, especially now, where if you're just into music, you can pay up. Like, I have Spotify Premium, I have Apple Music, I have a Tidal Premium account. So when I just want to listen to music and not listen to a lifestyle thing, if I want to listen to Mark Lanigan and things that sound like Mark Lanigan for 3 weeks, I can go on Pandora and make a Mark Lanigan radio station, and it's great, because I'm listening to music. But I listen to NPR on the radio all the time, in part because it's a cultural thing that I identify with.
Yes,
it's not because I need to know even more about the horrible things going on Earth. It's because I identify with the culture. So, I think that's why I probably get less terrestrial radio play than other people, because I don't make lifestyle music.
Yeah, that's a great. I remember when I just told my daughter had moved out recently, but when I would have to get in her car and move the car, because she works nights. Anyway, the radio would always be on, and I would get in, and I hated it because it was a lot. It was like, oh man, we're gonna go to the beach this weekend, and we're having some beers, and I'm like, this is like fucking 17-year-olds, and that's the lifestyle. It's the community vibe for that. That's why I didn't like it. I couldn't relate to it.
Well, certainly from my perspective as a middle-aged white guy, I think hip hop and country are the two formats that are most emblematic of that.
Right.
Where, hip hop is a culture. It's not just about music. It's about clothing. It's about
fashion, entertainment, television,
and country's the same way. You know, a lot of people that drive pickup trucks and wear cowboy boots, but are certified public accountants. You know, they're and the hip hop guys that are listening to whatever kind of music. It's not that they're living in the hood anymore. The guy's a doctor, but he identifies with that culture. It's where he comes from, and that's great. I think that's great. It's just not what I do.
No, it's lifestyle. You're 100% right. Are you going to be touring at all?
God, I hope so.
Yeah,
God, I hope so.
What do you have planned, or what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I don't know what this summer is going to look like, if anything, but I do know that when Ahmed and I have decided to not be Jace Everett and Ahmed Morud. We've decided on a band name.
Rouse. What does that mean?
It's Norwegian for generosity.
Okay.
There's a long backstory to it, kind of how we became. If you don't mind, I'll tell it. It'll take 2 minutes.
Go ahead, man. Yeah.
Ahmed and I knew each other and knew of each other, but we didn't know each other well. And he and I got invited to go to a writers' camp, where a bunch of songwriters get together in a house in Norway in 2016. And so we're there with like 9 other writers in this giant house out in the woods, beautiful. We're all writing songs together, and they had a cook that would cook every night. And I got into the habit, because this is what I do at my house, I just went in to wash dishes after every meal. And Norwegians can be pretty shy. They're very kind, but pretty shy. Yeah. And Bad Things was a big radio hit there, so I'm known. I'm famous compared to some of the people there. I'm not, but it's a whatever.
You had a hit that was famous.
I had a hit. So they were all like super impressed that the True Blood guy is washing dishes. They thought it was a big deal.
Right.
And I didn't. I was like, well, I'm an asshole with you assholes. We're all equal here, apparently. That's why I'm here. And Ahmed is much like me. And next thing I know, I turn around and he's drying dishes. And it just became the thing where Ahmed and Ahmed's kind of a big deal too, in Norway. And so everybody would just say, you're so Rouse, and it became kind of a meme of the week. Okay. And so it's just something that. Our music is pretty dark and pretty out there, but we're also actually good dudes. They're family men, fathers, husbands. We get our darkness out on tape. We get our darkness out on stage, so it stays the hell out of our lives. Right. So we decided to go with Rouse for the name.
So are you the two of you planning on touring?
Yeah, I think in 2023. We'll have at least 2 full EPs out, and then we can pull some stuff from his catalog and some stuff from my catalog, and I think we can have a pretty incredible show, honestly.
I think so too, but now it'll be probably a lot easier to tour Norway and Europe, just because they're a lot more it's easier to book gigs there. They're more music friendly.
Yeah.
Less distance. Do you think you'd be able to tour the States or some places here? Yeah.
I don't have any idea and almost no ambition towards that.
I get it.
Would I like to tour the States? Yeah, but do I want to just get out there and live in a van for 6 months?
No,
I don't. So you're right. In Europe, we can do Scandinavia, we can do the UK, we could do Germany, we could probably get down to France and Netherlands and Belgium, hopefully by then we'll be able to do Kyiv. We'll be able to go to Ukraine. I would love to do that.
That's so cool, man.
So we'll see. It's all pie in the sky until it happens, but. The new record we're working on is so good.
That's cool, man.
It's in a way it's much more commercial than the first thing, but it's also edgier. That's
great.
You're gonna dig it. You're gonna dig it.
I'm sure. I love both of your solos. I'd love to see you guys play. I honestly, man, I just like to hang out with you two guys because you're both fun. I enjoy talking to both of you.
He's the best, man. He's the best.
He's a good guy. Okay, so let me tell people where to get the record. we're going to get the record. Crazy Eddie,
Go down to Tower.
Yeah, go to Tower Music on 4th and Vine. God, am I old? That's ridiculous. All right, so way down here, it's available on every place you stream.
Yeah.
If you want to buy the record, please buy it at Bandcamp. That's the best way to support pretty much all the artists that are out there, and definitely all the artists that are on this show for the most part. I know all the artists for the most part is like not good English, but yeah, that's the way it is. All the artists for the most part. Jace has a pretty robust website at Jace Everett, JaceEverett.com. Also, you could find Jace on Facebook at Jace. It's the real Jace Everett, and you know how it's the real because he's got a check like that's the real. You know, like you got to. Did you see that? There was this guy. I don't know. I'm not. It was Instagram. He was walking around, and he goes, and he'd go into these places, and he goes, "Look, I'm verified on Instagram. Can you guys work out something for me where I could like?" He'd go into a car dealership, and it was like, "Oh my God, yeah, you can drive our car."
Yeah,
like
it's amazing.
It's hilarious,
and it's either hilarious or profoundly sad. I can't decide which.
Both. I think it's both. It's hilarious. It's hilarious that it's profoundly sad, and people are like, "Oh my God, you're verified."
Yeah,
yeah. It's pretty wild.
I had several people when I got verified on Instagram. I had people message me like, "Hey man, how'd you get verified?"
I have a course. It's $9.97, where you can make 4 easy payments. You know,
give me $100 and I'll tell you how.
Yeah, right. You send your license in. You got a lot of followers, and you got somebody to know. Anyway, it's a great record. I'm gonna put our original interview after this, but I want to have one. This is a new question, and I wanted to test it out on you. Tell me the most fun thing you've ever done besides this show.
Oh man, besides Everybody Loves Guitar, I can't think of anything besides that. The most fun thing I've done with pants on or off,
dude. You're the one who's verified, not me. You could say whatever you want. This is the wild, wild west, man.
Man, I have been so lucky to do so many things that are incredibly fun, and geez, I'm sorry, I should have thought about this. I guess I'll name something that was really fun. I did. Is it the most fun? I have no idea, but I remember going on a trip with my son to Norway. Well, I was touring in Norway, but my son flew over with us, and he played a couple of shows. We were his band. He played a couple of shows. Cool. Then he went and had his summer with his mom in France, and then at the end of the summer when we were wrapping up, it was my drummer Casey's birthday, and it was my bachelor party, and I had Casey, Dan Cohen, my son, and myself in a small town in Norway, and we played a gig, and it was August, so the sun was up all night, and we just partied our asses off. And it was so great to have my best friends and my son drinking beers, laughing, playing music, and it was fantastic. It's fantastic.
That's cool, and for your bachelor party, that's really cool.
But we called it that. No one, when you're getting married for the third time. Really, I feel like you've bachelor partied out.
Third time's the charm.
Yeah, it has been.
The charm. Yeah,
but I think it's good to have a bachelor party with your adult son. That says a lot about you. I'm not sure what.
You know what? I have a tough time drinking in front of my kids, and they're all adults. They're 32, 30, and 22, and they'll come over here and they're like, "Dad, why don't you have a drink?" And I'm like, I don't know why. I always feel what if I have to be your dad?
Well, just makes you a better person than me. I have no problem drinking in front of my children.
It's not a better person. I don't know why I don't do that. I just am weird about it.
Yeah, I think once they all have driver's licenses, you're good.
And it's not like I need to protect them. My older son, it could crush a steel can with his. He's massive, and my middle son is a big kid. I mean, they could all kick my ass, so it's not like daddy, I'll need, I mean, that's just a weird thing. I have to get that out.
You're a responsible dad. I don't think there's.
I don't know.
I don't think you need to work on increasing your drinking opportunities. I don't think that's. I don't think that's a goal in 2022. I need to drink more in front of my children.
I need to drink more in front of my kids. Yeah, they're all like, "Dad, why are you so uptight?" I'm like, "No, I'm not uptight." Like, you are. You're not drinking. I don't know. It's a weird thing. I have to work that. Maybe I'll have to go to a therapist to
That's
work
probably
that out.
That's probably well worth your time and money to do that. Yeah.
I know. And then they're like, "Well, smoke some weed." I'm like, that's even further removed.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just not that guy. Anyway, man, thank you for making another great record. I wish you a ton of success, man. You're a super talented guy, and I'm not just saying that because I like you and find you amusing. You are a super talented guy and an excellent songwriter, man, and you got a great voice.
Buddy.
And
I appreciate it. I know you don't do a lot of repeat guests, so it's proof that if you pay a man enough, he'll do just about anything. So
I was
just
going to say, that's great advertising. So you know what you got to do.
You got an extra $2,500 laying around. That's a good start.
There you go. Way Down Here is the name of the EP. Check out Jace's whole catalog. Honestly, he's a super talented guy. He's got so many great stuff there. And check out Amun stuff.
Almond.
A-N-U. I know you wrote it out, and I was
it's almond without the L. Almond.
Almond. Oh yeah, almond. Like yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Almond Maru. He's an incredible blues guitar. He's incredible guitar player, but he's a really good blues guy and just a cool dude. And check out his episode. He was on here. We had a great time. I don't think he did good because usually, depending upon where you're from, those aren't questions that you normally get asked. I mean, even if you're from here, you don't normally get asked a lot of those questions.
Well, yeah, it's his second language, English. So, yeah.
He did phenomenal, man. I was just, really impressed. So, anything else I could promote or that you'd like to promote or push? Or
Almond's got a new solo record out with a band he works with called Lucky Lips. And that new record's great. There's a killer video for a song called Wolves that's just a lot of fun. So check out Almond for sure because he's my brother from another, and if he does well, I do well.
Right on, man. I appreciate that. And on your website, is there going to be you're touring? If you're going to have dates, it'll be
anything
on there?
that is happening. There's been a revamp of the website, so anything that is happening or will be happening should be there. So
good. I appreciate it. Good, man. Jace, thank you for everything. Everybody, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your socials. We appreciate your support. I'd love everybody to check out Jace's music. Way Down Here is a new record. Go to jaceeverett.com and on Facebook at Real Jace Everett. It's the verified one. And on Instagram as well. He's on there. Are you verified on Instagram?
Man, I'm double verified.
Dude, next time it's $5,000. If you got 2 verifications, you got more money.
Yeah, I am loaded.
Dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. I enjoy hanging out with you all the time.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks for everything. And don't forget, everybody, happiness. Remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice. Go play your guitar or sing or do whatever floats your boat and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I am out. Jace, thanks so much for everything, and best of luck with the record.
Thank you, brother.
Let's do this. Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. And I am so excited to have Jace Everett with us today. He's a really great songwriter. He's funny as hell. As I said to him, he's got just the right amount of weird that this is going to be a really fun conversation. And he's a very smart guy. So we're here with Jace Everett. Couple of quick announcements. First of all, Mario Biffarali from Godin. Mario, I also have a wall. There's a wing here named after Mario, Jace. I don't know how he's turned.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Biffarali wing. Yeah, Mario, thanks.
Hall.
Biffarali Hall. Yeah, thanks so much for connecting us. Also, make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com/subscribe and subscribe to the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the little emoji that looks like a bell. That helps us get recommended with YouTube's algorithm. All right, Jace Everett. I'm going to give you a quick background. This guy is fucking very interesting. Dropped out of Belmont University to become a full-time musician. He moved to France, had a son, and then he dropped out of the music business for 5 years. Signed to MCA Records in 2003, then EMI Publishing the same years. the same year, excuse me. He then signed to Sony Nashville, where he made a proto-bro country album that flopped. But it had this song on there called Bad Things on it. And in 2008, HBO stumbled across Bad Things and made the song the theme to True Blood. And I don't know a person anywhere that's listened to or watched True Blood that hasn't sat and grooved to that song, because it's a perfect song. It's great. And I hope you got paid a fuck ton of money on it, because you deserved it. Since then, Jace has made 6 full-length albums, an EP, and some scattered singles as an independent artist. He's toured all over the world. He's got 9 BMI awards, dozens of sync placements in film, TV, and ads. He's got cuts with artists from Nashville, Texas, Canada, Norway, Australia, and England. He's got 2 new records. Man, he puts out a ton of really good music, man. That's the thing. I went back and listened to this. He's a great writer. He's got 1 record he put out called Lost in the Flood, and he created that with Norwegian guitarist Amund Marad. Did I get his name right?
Amund Marad.
Yes, that. And an ambient record called Yalem. Both records are really great. He's an incredible songwriter. He's got an awesome voice. Dude, thank you so much. I'm really happy to hang with you today. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, I say we cut it there. That felt great. And,
can only go downhill from here.
Most of my insecurities have been sated for the day, and I'm just going to go hang out.
Take a nap. Let's get some alcohol here, man. All right. You were born in Indiana, but you grew up in Texas. Why the move?
My folks are nomads, to say the least, and for no discernible reason. Not in the military, not outlaws to my knowledge. My dad was in pharmaceutical sales when I was born in Evansville. They moved to Indianapolis for a while when he switched jobs. Then we moved to St. Louis for a while because he switched jobs. And then he decided, you know what? This was the 70s, and he was making 6 figures, and it was just crushing life.
Wow.
So he decided, instead of do that, what I'll do in 1979, at the beginning of one of the greatest recessions in American history, is I'll go down and get into the building business in Texas.
Sorry, I'm not laughing.
No, it's either laugh or cry. There's only 2 options. So
see, what is the worst possible decision I can make?
I'm going to take this hammer to hit myself in the dick every 15 minutes. So, so that's God. What we did. And then we entered a life of not abject poverty, but certainly economic discomfort for the remainder of my youth, but it was great. My dad was tired of I get it from him. He doesn't like taking instruction. He doesn't mind giving instruction, but really what he likes to do is collaborate with people he respects. And it turns out that he really respects craftsmen and laborers and people who get their hands dirty and make things, because that's who he is. And that's what he needed. And in the end, he wound up becoming quite successful. As I was in my 20s, he wound up having a really good, successful run before he retired. But so that's why we moved, is because my mom and dad they've been married for 50 years this year.
Holy smokes. That's awesome, man.
Isn't that great? And
cool.
They have lived in 26 houses.
Wow. Wow. But man, 50 years of marriage, that's pretty.
Hold on. My supervisor's at the door.
Yeah.
That's okay. Love you.
There you go. You're well on your way to 50, Jace, I can tell.
Yeah, well, we started a little late, and I'm limping, so
It's funny, when I met my wife, I said, we got to get 50 years together, and it'll bring us to both really close to 80.
You can do it, man.
I think so. I think we can.
Stay healthy.
If she doesn't shoot me, we'll do it. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Divorce, to be fair, you'd still technically be married.
Good point. Your bio said
and this is what I was interested in. You were a Bible thumping sociopath for about 8 years. So I was curious, like, how did that come about? And then what happened that made you disconnect from that after 8 years?
Well, I mean, obviously the sociopath part is hopefully just me trying to be cute. But yeah, I became a born again Christian at the age of 10.
Wow, that's heavy.
Yeah. Well, I've always
that's commitment.
I've always been utterly consumed with myself, and I think that's the first evidence of that. The level of ego to be 10 years old and determined that you desperately need Christ in your life because you're so reprehensible you're going to go to hell. That's a tremendous amount of vanity and self-worth, I think, there, to think that you're that important. Nonetheless, that's where I was at.
Wow.
I heard we'd been in the Episcopal Church for years, and we went to an Assemblies of God church at one point, and I just loved music. I was always into music, and you know, in the evangelical church, especially back then, but I would imagine even today, you know, they give these sermons and these altar calls, and then there's this music going on underneath it. And just like if you watch a film without music, it's really difficult to emotionally connect to the film sometimes.
Yeah, the underscore is so important, man. And people,
yeah, you add that music, it's like, oh my God, this otherwise nebulous scene really. And that's what happens in these churches, and it's an amazingly effective device, and it worked on me like a charm. So I was the first cat down the aisle, man. I need me some Jesus, and
wow.
And I really got into it. I was redheaded, I was big for my age, buck-toothed. You know, people called me Howdy Doody. People called me Opie Taylor. You know, all the redheaded jokes, because this is the 80s, and, you know, being a redhead was still a thing.
Well, let me interrupt you 1 second. If anybody's listening on audio and not video, this dude is like one of the best looking guys I've ever had on the show. So whatever happened, it reversed itself, dude. Let me tell you, you're a good looking guy. Yeah.
You're funny. But, you know, I think I aged into being palatable. You know, like as a preteen, there was all these angles and jutting things and asymmetry that were just like, what the fuck is wrong with that kid's head? You know, what's happening? And I got into a lot of fist fights. I was not, in my mind, I was not popular. I was profoundly insecure, and the evangelical church really gave me a venue to feel important, to feel valued, and to feel safe. And eventually I became very popular in my big youth group. I was the worship leader, and I was teaching classes. I was the cool kid.
Yeah.
And when you're at that age, you know, hungering for acceptance, that's a really great place to be. So, I wasn't the smartest kid in my youth group, but I was fairly clever, and I hung out with the smartest kids in my youth group. And we really got into theology, man. We dove into it. We were reading things that weren't just the Bible, you know, expositions of theology, and really digging into it and what it meant. And eventually that actual road is what brought me to the end of my pursuit of that faith, as I kind of came to a dead end in my theological exploration. And also, I'd been exposed to a lot of people in the gay community via my mom's work. I had a lot of gay friends, you know, older people that were gay, that I knew to be just amazing people who were loving and kind and good people. And my church was exceptionally homophobic.
So you started getting conflict of or questioning. Yeah.
I was like, wait, some of these guys that are gay happen to really love God too. They're devout Christians. They're in these same-sex, you know, partnerships, and they're faithful to one. They're doing great.
They're good people. Yeah.
They're great people. So that emotional conflict, coupled with my theological confusion because I really knew the Bible at that time, and the more you know, the more disconcerting the Bible can be, in my estimation. So I went through I left the church and tried like hell to be an atheist. It turns out I didn't have enough faith for that. Because you really got to have a strong, to know that Jesus is Lord takes a lot of faith, and to know that there's no God takes just as much faith.
I didn't have enough faith to be. What did you say? I didn't have enough faith to be an atheist. That's great.
Well, it's an act of faith because it's, so I'm a devout agnostic, which means I wholeheartedly have no fucking idea. I still love Matthew 5 and do unto others as you wish to be done unto you, and, love your neighbor and try not to be an asshole.
Did you have brothers and sisters, or you're an only child?
I've got an older sister.
Where was she? Was she part of the whole religious thing that you went through?
The irony is, no. She found it. My sister is exceptionally reserved, a very cautious person, and I'm a very incautious person like my father. And so we're very opposite of one another. And so when I was evangelical and speaking in tongues and all that jazz, she was like, y'all are weird, whatever. Today, my sister is an evangelical Christian. And works for a church. Now, she's an evangelical in a much more reserved manner than I was. She just happens to attend an evangelical church and is a devout Christian. She never got as nutty. She doesn't get as nutty about anything as I do about everything. So she's she's far more mature than me in many aspects.
No, I get that though, because I always say I hate. I'm not a control freak, but I hate being told what to do. Just leave me be, I'm not really employable.
Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from. Totally. It's a very, just like leave me alone kind of thing. Let me figure it out and I'll ask for help if I need it, but like, just leave me be sort of.
Which, can be a great asset in certain arenas and a great,
liability in others.
Deficiency, liability is the exact right word, and it has that lone wolf mentality is definitely, from a business standpoint, from a fiscal standpoint, it has harmed me more than helped me.
Yeah.
From a creative standpoint, I believe it has helped me more than harmed me. But finding that balance, and there's never stasis. I mean, you find that balance for a season in your life. For 3 months, you're really in balance. Then you're out of balance for 10 months. Then you have 2 months of balance. And hopefully those briefer moments when you're in balance is when it counts,
Yeah, totally. I agree with you, because I'm always trying to get in balance, and I do it for a while, but it's not realistic. Life happens, man.
Yeah,
it really is. It really is. I'm glad you said that, because that's important, man. All right. Thanks for sharing all that. That was pretty interesting. That was, to your credit, I give you a lot of credit to pursue that with that kind of enthusiasm at such a young age, and then to unpursue it.
I went through a whole, wanting to burn the church down phase in my immaturity, but I definitely have my thoughts on theism in general, that aren't necessarily positive, but they are my thoughts and not necessarily germane to everyone else's life. So
gotcha.
I try to keep them to myself outside of intimate relationships.
Gotcha, man. Okay, so you also said during this time, Jace, you did not listen to any secular music. So my question was, how did that impact you, and what changed that all of a sudden you became open and very connected to this secular music?
When I got my car, I started, listening to classic rock and things like that, and then buying the occasional cassette. There was a brief phase. I probably overstated it in my bio because, if it's worth saying, why not oversay it?
Your bio is the funniest thing I've ever read in my life. I would have liked to read the whole thing. It was just, I would have nothing to ask you.
But it's just, it's bios to me are just so fatuous. So it's like, I'm not going to pay. Every time I paid someone to write it, I'm like, good God, that guy sounds like a prick. So
no, I'm so happy you didn't give me the stand. People give this, when people do that, I could always tell a PR, it's like 200 adjectives, but it says nothing.
Yeah.
Who's that for,
Yeah, exactly. But the secular music thing, from the age of 12, there was this traveling circus that went to evangelical churches called the God of Rock. And it was a multimedia presentation on the big screen in your church, and basically would show you how evil and satanic, like overtly and consciously satanic, all rock music was, how it was trying to teach your children not just to not be godly, but to worship Satan himself.
Wow.
And they would play some of the backward masking stuff, like the famous Another One Bites the Dust, where it sounds like I want to smoke marijuana if you play it backwards. All this shit. And of course, rock stars became aware of it, and then they began fucking with them, which made it awesome. Because then there was actual satanic messages intentionally implanted and stuff just to fuck with people, which was brilliant. But that at the age of 12 or so, I was like, oh my God, I don't want to go to hell. So I literally had my Def Leppard Pyromania cassette and threw it on a fire.
Wow.
And did the whole thing, and then by 16, I was like, well, this is kind of horseshit and kind of ridiculous. And, I started listening.
How did you get, that's a big switch. How did that come?
Just maturity, and just realizing that you were being manipulated, and not necessarily maliciously. I think a lot of the people who preached some of the things that I wound up going against, I think they were earnest in their faith. I think the majority of them. There's always the hucksters out there doing it for the bread, but I think there are far fewer of those than most cynics would actually care to believe. I think a lot of people are true believers.
No, I agree with you on that. I think so.
Which is in a way scarier. But somehow less gross. But anyway, I just matured out of it. Me and a few of my friends were like, well, that's ridiculous. We're not going to go to hell if we listen to Dire Straits.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be okay.
I really give you a lot of credit, because it takes a lot of balls. Forget about what the topic is, that this topic had to do with faith. It takes a lot of balls to go deep into something and then to say, you know what? This shit is not for me.
Yeah. Well, I have to give my mother and father, Jimmy and Cheryl, a lot of credit for that, because they probably to a fault entrusted me to make good decisions for myself. And they gave me a lot of rope. And to be fair, I never hung myself with it while under their roof. I made some real fucked up decisions once I was on my own, but under their roof,
who hasn't?
Yeah, but under their roof, I was actually I was philosophically rebellious, but not rebellious in fact.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Sure. I mean, I'd smoke a cigarette and be like, yeah, now I'm Billy Badass, but I wasn't, doing crazy shit like a lot of my friends were. I wasn't getting drunk at parties in high school and stuff like that. I was pretty square. I still am square.
That's amazing, man, to get that deep into something, and then as a young kid to have the courage to get out of it. That the courage part is what I'm really
and I guess that's what I'm giving my parents credit for, is because I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that when it came to my mother and father, there was nothing I could do that would make them not love me.
That is a big thing.
That's a massive thing. It's a thing that very few people I've ever met can honestly say that.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
And I knew that consciously at that age.
Well, I'll tell you, I've talked to close to 800 people, and there is a tremendous difference in someone that grows up with that anchor of love as far as their ability to make decisions, and do exactly what you're talking about, versus the people that didn't grow up in that cloak of love, if you want to call it that. Yeah. Really huge. Well,
and as I've told my parents, it really fucking ruined my career, because all the really successful guys have major daddy issues. I'm like, couldn't one of you guys died or something? Help me out. All the love.
I might have had 3 big hits like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
it's
bad things.
Them, really.
Then you go to Belmont, which I was kind of shocked because that's sort of like very controlled, but I understand that was kind of like an actualization of your new life and a cast off of your old life. What was behind that decision? Was there any anxiety associated with that?
Well, when I applied for Belmont, my ambition was to be a contemporary Christian artist. And literally Nashville and Belmont are two of the foundational pillars of the Christian music community. And so when I applied my junior year, I wasn't 100% sure anymore, but that was still the inertia. My trajectory was to be a CCM guy, you know?
Okay.
And so I got accepted, and my ACT scores and my middling grades, I actually got an academic scholarship and a voice scholarship. And so it was relatively affordable. It was Belmont. The first year was Belmont University. It was like $8,000 a year. You know, now it's like 45. But
I don't know who can afford to go to that school anymore.
Yeah. So I went, and I went as a commercial music major and realized quickly that was really dumb and very uninteresting, and was about to switch my English to an English lit major, and then had my first true regret, maybe my only true regret, is that I dropped out of university. And
why was that a regret? Why do you still regret that?
Because if I had had the intellectual and emotional maturity at the time to realize I didn't want to study music, that I should have studied something else and done music, like my son has done. I think I would have really enjoyed the experience, and I would love to have that piece of paper, man. I think it's a real achievement when people get a university degree, that it's one of those achievements that can't be taken away from you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That you always have that. And I don't know that I ever would have done anything with it, but in the past few years, when the music business has gone down as far as being rewarding financially, I might have gone to teach high school part-time or something like that and really enjoyed it, because I enjoy history, I enjoy literature, I enjoy things that I don't listen to much music. You know, it's not something I do for pleasure very much at this point in my life. I'm more interested in reading history or watching a film or watching stand-up comedy. I just feel like it would have rounded me out a little bit better. The only reason I don't regret it is because that stupid decision led to my next stupid decision, which was knocking a girl up in France, which provided me with the light of my life, my beautiful 24-year-old son.
Congratulations. That's cool. Is he here or is he in France?
He's in Nashville. He was in France.
That's great.
He was born in Texas, 5 years in Texas. We divorced. His mother and I, who is still a dear friend. I love that woman to the end of the world.
That's nice.
We got divorced, and then he was in France for almost 10 years, and then he moved back here at like 14, 15. He's been here ever since.
Is his mom here, or if you don't have to answer that if you don't? Oh, his mom's in France. Okay, wow, that's pretty cool. Wow, holy shit, man. Okay.
Sorry, I give really long answers, and to all your listeners who are like, cool, what about guitars, motherfucker?
No, this show isn't about guitars. Don't worry about it, man. And you dropped out of music for 5 years. What was that all about?
Well, it was about having a baby and being 23 and this French wife that I barely knew. You know, she was really just some girl I was hooking up with. Luckily, she comes from a really good family and she's a good person. So we both had good family backgrounds, but man, we were kids.
Yeah.
She was a waitress. I was a bass player in a rock band. I mean, we were living like rock stars, you know, living like hooligans. And, but neither one of us wanted to give up the baby. And, I was just like, you know what? I need to do the right thing. She was willing to move to Texas. So I came back, my God bless nepotism. My dad had a company that was starting to do okay. So he gave me a job I was unqualified for, overpaid me to do it. And I started a little dump truck company. I built a dump truck, had a Bobcat skid steer, and I was doing trash cleanup at job sites. And
that's a good business, man.
It was a great business. I was making six figures by the age of 26, 27 doing that.
That's awesome.
I'd stayed in it, I'd be rich. But,
if you stayed in it and just did songwriting on top of that on the side, yeah,
or just gave it up entirely, I'd be super fat and very wealthy. I'd probably be dead from diabetes already.
So you were 23 when you had your son. I'm trying to think. I was like 26, and then my son out-stupided me. He had his daughter at 24. I'm like, Nick, you're supposed to break this.
Yeah, my son turned 24 in April without a positive pregnancy test, and I was like, done. He's got 3 in physics. He's not a dad yet. I'm finished here.
Yeah, right on, man. Right on. Okay, so that was because you basically dropped out of music to be like a responsible dad.
Yeah, and it made it made me a shitty husband filled with resentment and all that jazz. And of course, I put that on the relationship and on her, not on the boy. I just transferred it all to her, which was not fair and incorrect to do. But I was 27.
I mean, how do you not do these things at that age? It's like a
hopefully what I'm doing now is realizing that. So in the woman I'm married to today, try not to project my bullshit onto her. That's hopefully what I do with it.
With chances are good, you usually marry like I don't want to use the word up, but like a stronger person that won't put up with that anyway.
Well, that's definitely who I'm married to. Her bullshit-ometer is very sensitive.
Right. So it serves everybody really well.
Yeah.
You're forced to act like a human being.
Yeah.
All right. So then you get signed to a record deal and a publishing deal. I was curious, like, how did that did someone see you playing, or were you co-writing songs with a successful writer or artist? That's two different things at the same time. It's pretty cool.
After the divorce, I moved back to Nashville. I was like, well, guess what? I'll just pretend I'm 23 again and start this party over. And I was playing bass for a buddy of mine, Chris Giaspani, who's back in Texas now. But he moved up here to play with this cat. And he's like, hey, dude, we need a singing bass player that's a good hang. He's like, there's better bass players, but why don't you come up? I was like, thanks for the compliment. I'll be right there.
It's either the hang, the money, or the music, right?
Well, and when I got back here and looked at the bass players, I was like, wow, there really is better bass players, like thousands of them. I took that gig, and we were playing the Bluebird one night doing a stripped down set. The artist was, and he got us up to sing backgrounds with him because he was really into Poco and the Eagles and stuff. So we had a really good harmony thing happening. And the cat that was there to see him from MCA took me aside after I got off stage. He was like, hey man, here's my card. Why don't you give me a call? And so I gave him a call, and he's like, so tell me your story. And I came into the office, and we hung out, went for drinks a couple of times, and he offered me a development deal on MCA. So we were going to cut 4 sides.
On the strength of your vocals?
I guess he just liked my vibe, I guess he liked, I had an earring, I had my shiny shirt. It was 2001, so it was Nashville. So we were like 5 years. It was Nashville. So we were about 5 years behind LA. So I still have the 1988 shiny shirt, frosted tips. I look like a douchebag. So he's like, well, that guy needs a record deal. He's a douchebag. And he was right. I was a douchebag.
Oh my God.
So that happened, and on the strength of that, EMI was like, well, let's hear your songs. And I played him some songs. I'd gotten some co-writes. A Nashville songwriter had taken me under his wing and was kind of mentoring me, grooming me, and all that jazz. And so there's 5 or 6 different people pushing me in 9 or 10 directions. And honestly, man, I was like, I did not come to Nashville to be a country artist. I'm not a country artist.
No, your first album was your only country output, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I love country music, but the country music I love is not remotely what's happening, and has been happening since about 1978.
Sure.
And I'm a rock guy too, and I'm into ambient music. I'm all over that's part of what happened with that Christian music thing, is because I was listening to Jesus music, genre-wise, I was exposed to every genre in equal measure. And I absorbed them all in equal measure, as opposed to like, I'm into the Beatles, I'm into the Stones. No, it's like, I'm into Jesus, so I'm listening to all these different genres, and it helped me be diverse, but it did prohibit me from developing my own voice quickly. I kind of aged late, I kind of came to maturity late as far as who I am as an artist, but regardless.
Yeah, but you can't, that's nothing that you can, I don't think that's something you could force.
No, not unless you have really weird parents,
Well, but I mean, how do you came to your voice when you meant to come to, what I'm saying? That's such an organic thing. I understand what you're saying. It was later than most people that were just writing music, but I
guess I'm thinking of people like Dylan, who he was Woody Guthrie part 2, I mean, he was so deep into folk music that when he came to do his first record, he was fully formed.
Yeah, but you're picking, the only other person you could have picked out as your frame of reference that was like Lennon and McCartney.
Yeah, but I mean, why not compare yourselves to the best? Because that's what you're shooting for. You may not ever hit it. And I won't. But I want to compare myself to the people who are the greatest of all time, because that's who I'm trying to emulate.
I totally get that, man.
So yeah, I had a publishing deal. I had this MCA deal. Everybody at MCA, there was a corporate takeover. They all got blown out. I got picked up by Sony. There was a corporate takeover. Everybody at Sony got blown out. But the guys from MCA wound up moving to Sony. And they were like, oh yeah, man, you're cool. Yeah, let's, what the hell, let's do it. And I was like, whew. Wow. But what was funny is I didn't really want any of that. But the inertia of it, going around Nashville at 30 years of age and people treating you like, oh, well, he matters because he's going to put out a record to be cool to him. Oh, give him a good co-write. We'll hook him up with Rivers Rutherford and Chris Stapleton and these guys that you're going to want to write with because he's got a record deal. I was like, well, fuck, this is pretty cool. Yeah. Because I'm going to learn a lot quickly. And so I just kind of got in the boat, and the rushing waters took me to the rocky bottom of the waterfall, which was my record falling off of a truck somewhere near a Walmart in Sheboygan, and never to be heard from again. But I wrote one of the songs I wrote for my record that the label decided wasn't a hit, so they wouldn't record it, wound up being Josh Turner's first #1.
You're a man.
Yeah, and that's a song that I'd been working on for 6 months, the melody. And I brought it into Chris Stapleton and Chris Dubois, and they were like, fuck, that's great, let's write this. And we really worked hard on it. It was a 2-day write, actually, which never happens, especially with Stapleton and me. We write quickly and we forget it. But we all thought it was a great song, and it is a great song. And Josh had his first big hit with it. It was a real feather in my cap, as an artist, to be going into my radio tour already a hit songwriter.
Hell yeah. Was Josh in, because he's kind of known for like very conservative following. Yeah. Back then he was, because I watched the video of that. That is like the most salacious.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't think it is. That's his wife in the video.
Oh,
that's literally his wife.
Okay, totally different.
They were married in the video, but I will tell you, his fans, about half of his fans, freaked out and were praying for him and worried about his soul. It's like, dude, he's with his wife.
Yeah, see, I didn't know that because it was a pretty salacious video. Now it's like, okay, totally.
Not really. They weren't even making out or anything. It's just she's a gorgeous woman, And
yeah, it was for a guy who leads with his image is like super conservative, religious. I thought it was
really.
Yeah, it was definitely like I didn't care. It wasn't like it certainly isn't. It didn't offend me at all. But when you're leading with your conservative base and your religious base,
well, I will say Josh did not want to record the song.
Really?
Yeah, because he thought the song was too salacious.
Interesting.
Which I'm just like, how are you guys going to have kids, bro? You know, at some point you're gonna have to fuck your wife.
Yeah.
You can put a blanket over you so God doesn't see you. I don't know what to tell you, but I mean that's
At some point you're gonna have to fuck your wife. That might be the best single quote in 800 shows. At some point you're going to have to fuck.
Well, and she's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, just a total knockout of a lady. No, but he was nervous about it, and his label just said, "Look, dude, if you want to be a gospel artist, Word Records is right down the street. But if you want us to make your sophomore debut, put this on your song, put this song on your record. We're naming the album this. This is the first single, and shut up about it." And I think at the time it was the longest climb to #1 in country radio history. It took 32 weeks.
Oh wow.
Which was great for us as writers because and blessedly, it's become an evergreen song. It's always on American Idol or X Factor. It still gets lots of airplay on country radio. So it was a real blessing. And if country radio would continue to play songs like that, if they came out today, I would go on Music Row and continue to write country songs, but
sure,
I don't know how to write the kind of songs that are popular. I don't understand them, and I've tried, and it's just a mess when I try and write one. It's as awful as that is. It's even worse when I do it.
I think you need to wear like a disco outfit and a cowboy hat, and then you're halfway there.
I guess, man.
I don't know. It's strange.
It's a weird cultural phenomenon that I do not relate to. So,
hey, I hope this is the only question I ask you that you've been asked a dozen times. How did HBO find Bad Things, and how did that change your life, good, bad, or otherwise, once they used that song?
The reason they found it is that I had developed a relationship with a woman at iTunes in New York who became a fan specifically off that song. And we became friendly, and my management was in New York, so I was up there quite a bit. And she said, "Hey, man, we do this thing called the iTunes Single of the Week every Tuesday. It's a giveaway of the song, but it'll really bring some attention to you. You think you want to do it? I'll ask your label." I was like, "Fuck yeah." And I was the first Nashville artist to do that. And the first Nashville artist to debut on iTunes with their record, because they were really like, this digital thing may be a thing. We should maybe look into it. Always on the cutting edge, the major label, and especially in Nashville. But it became the iTunes free download. I played the Tonight Show like that week, the Leno Tonight Show out in L.A., and like 300,000 people downloaded it. Crickets. Country radio wouldn't play it. Country radio didn't like me. They'd hear me speaking French to my son on the phone. This was the time when we were talking about freedom fries and banning French wine because of the Iraq War. So I was some kind of, fancy boy that spoke French. And I was like, yeah, that's fair. I am a fancy boy that speaks French. That's fine. Redneck.
Right on, man.
But anyway, the label dropped me in June of 2006. The record
after you had 300,000 downloads,
but they weren't paid downloads, man.
Yeah, but still, something's gonna.
But there was a merger between Universal and Sony, or somebody in Sony. I don't. Somebody bought somebody. All my guys got blown out. Joe Galante was running the show. Joe's a great record guy. Has been a giant in the business. And he liked me. He was just like, I like you a lot, dude. It's just that there's two other artists on your label, Gretchen Wilson and Miranda Lambert, and they're both really starting to do well, and you're the next guy in line, and I got to let you go. And I was like, you know what? That's 100% fair.
Yeah.
Thanks for the memories. So that's 2006. I'm back to, I lose my publishing deal the next year because they're like, this guy's not going to get another deal. I'm back to playing bass in copy bands and, you know, driving by gun stores more slowly than is probably comfortable. And then 2008, man, I get a call from this cat in June, and he's like, hey man, there's this new TV show called True Blood. It's this vampire show, and we're thinking about using your song Bad Things in it. And your publishing deal is really weird in that even though you are not with them anymore, you have to sign off if we're going to use it. That's the one thing I put in my publishing deal. No one can use my music without my written permission. So like every time Your Man goes into X Factor or whatever, I get an email. And if I say no, it doesn't go. I've never said no once, but I always wanted to have that.
But did you own the publishing or no? Or did they own?
At the time, no.
So you just got mechanicals from that?
Not at the time, because I hadn't recouped at EMI. So
okay.
Your Man was edging me towards recoupment, but regardless, they had to get my written permission to use Bad Things. They sent me the first 2 episodes of the show. No score, no music.
Oh, that's wild.
I thought it was horrible. I was like, this show is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. You know, because I was really into The Sopranos and The Wire. I was into like heady shit. And I was like,
The Wire was pretty intense. I love that.
Yeah.
Show.
And I was just like, this show is garbage. It's going to go nowhere. Fuck it. Use the song. Knock yourselves out.
Yeah.
Well, Alan Ball, it turns out, had been one of the 300,000 people who downloaded it. It was just on his hard drive somewhere. And when he was getting the show together, he told Gary Calamar, hey, man, I don't know who this cat is, but the vibe of this song is what I'm going for. It's Southern. It's swampy. It's dark, but it's also kind of tongue-in-cheek. And that's kind of what the show is going to be. Use this for now, and we'll find something to replace it. So the company in Chicago that did the visuals, that did an astonishing job. I can't remember their name, and I should because I owe them a lot. They nailed those visuals to my song so perfectly that even when Gary was going to try and find a replacement, it was like, dude, we're done. This is perfect.
It's a perfect song for that show.
And they did
perfect.
They chopped off a minute of it in the middle, and the company that did those visuals, they're what made it happen. You know, so this is what I tell songwriters when they talk about, you know, how do you get to be successful? Work really hard and pray for luck, because look at all the dominoes that had to fall.
Mm-hmm.
None of which I pushed. None. I helped get it on iTunes. Okay. A relationship helped get it on iTunes, but iTunes was the platform at the time. They had this program on Tuesdays. Alan Ball randomly was a subscriber, got the song. This company in Chicago happened to just crush it. All these things had to happen for me to be a success. And it's really important for especially artists who aren't sidemen. It's a different thing if you're the main guy. If you're the main guy and you make it or you don't make it, just if you make it, be humble and know that you had something to do with it, but there's no way you're this big because you're such a badass. A lot of luck was involved. Conversely, if you don't make it, don't kill yourself over it, because you may be fantastic. You just didn't get some of the lucky breaks that other people got. So either way, try not to make it so much about yourself. You know what I mean?
You thank you. And that is like, it's amazing. And this is why I love doing these interviews, is because there's a few situations where somebody handed someone a CD, but by and large, this is what happens. It's it's the universal karmic dominoes that fucking click, and all of a sudden, it's like you falling into place.
Well, and it makes sense. You think about your own birth. The fact that you exist is such a random nothing to do with anything but this unbelievable mathematical formula that led to Craig and Jay.
Yeah.
And just for that, be like, shit, yeah, I'm the luckiest dude in the world just for being here.
Well, just for being here and born in this country and not in like, two
middle-aged white guys in North America in the 21st century, we won.
Yeah, right. I mean, what a story. So how did you, you don't strike me as somebody that ever for a long time was the kind of person to like sign off on your own bullshit. It seemed like you kept.
Not for a long time, but I could definitely sustain being, drinking my own Kool-Aid for weeks and even months at a time, depending on what you're talking about. There was a season in the early 2000s when I did have a deal and did have a publishing deal, and I'd written Your Man, and before the record came out, when I was nothing but potential.
Yeah.
And everybody was being cool to me. There was definitely a season in there where I was like, yeah, man, I'm pretty fucking cool.
Right.
Which is ironic because it was probably the least cool part of my existence on earth. That I was probably the biggest douchebag right then.
Right then. But how did but you're like, I really very much appreciate your realism with yourself. What do you attribute that to?
Being profoundly not optimistic by nature. I'm a person who's very hopeful and almost completely devoid of optimism. And I attribute that, again, going back to my childhood of knowing that in this unit everything's okay.
Yeah.
Outside of this unit, it's probably all fucked.
Wow, interesting, man.
And I say that because it's just how I perceive it. It's how I look around at the world and I'm like, wow, this is not on a good trajectory.
Yeah, especially like in these times of like the last several years,
which I think has been true in all times.
Yeah, probably
throughout human history.
Yeah.
It's a very small group of people who really reap the rewards of this life.
Yeah.
So for me, it's about the humility you're talking about. The self-effacement is in some way, part of it's really just genuinely how I feel, and part of it is me projecting onto the world what I hope that they'll feel too. Is that none of us are all that important.
Yeah, man, I agree with you.
What's important is all of us together. That a band is only as good as its weakest link. So if you've got a shit hot drummer and the bass player can't pick his nose, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So it's better to have a good drummer and a good bass player and a good guitar player and a good singer and a great song. Now, look at U2. There's a band who nobody in that band was a virtuoso when they came out. Still on. 40 years on, still no virtuosos.
Well, the Edge has done the Edge has done some pretty cool stuff, sound effect wise.
He's a virtuoso at what he does, and his limitations created something that genuinely didn't exist before.
Yeah,
and that's what makes him a genius, and what makes that band what it is that guy said, "These are the only tools I've got. I want to make the best shit I can with these tools."
Yeah.
I mean, Steve Vai had a great quote ages ago on this. He said, practice, ignore your flaws and practice what you're good at. I forget exactly. He worded it far more eloquently than that, which I found odd from Steve because he's such a technical guy. But his ethos was, if I'm really good at vibrato, why don't I get really good at vibrato at 32-second notes?
Yeah.
No one else will ever know how good I am at vibrato, but I will, and that confidence will, infuse everything about my playing. And I found that I really took that to heart, as opposed to focusing on my deficiencies. Find out the two or three things that I'm really great at, put all my money on that.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that as well. I don't think you should work your weaknesses. I think you should enjoy your strengths and let somebody else do the other shit anyway.
Yeah.
Who was that? JT Cornfloss who did most of the guitar work there?
Ironically, no. Ironically, JT may not even be on that track.
Holy shit! Who did the guitar work on?
He is on that track, but I think he's muted. Because, you know, as you probably saw from my Instagram post, JT is the guy who finally got Bad Things to be recorded the right way. JT.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he passed away just a couple of weeks ago. And
he did pass away.
Oh, you didn't know? Yeah, JT.
I knew he was very sick. I didn't know he passed. Oh,
yeah, it was weekend before last. Yeah, and not only did we lose one of Nashville's and therefore the world's finest guitar players, one of the most recorded ever, we also lost a man who is just so undeniably decent.
Wow, I didn't know.
Such a good human being. One of the nicest people you'll ever meet in your life. But JT was on the session when we were doing Bad Things, and I posted a little Instagram video about this after I heard he'd passed. We tried recording it a couple of times, and it just kept missing the mark. So eventually I was like, told the producer, I was like, can I just play them my demo, which was me on guitar and bass and my drummer buddy. And it's a shit demo. It sounds like garbage. But it swings, and it's the vibe of the tune, the arrangement. And we listened to it down, and everybody's sitting around, and JT goes, well, why don't we just record it like the demo? Because that's how the song goes. And everyone's like, oh, okay. And they went in there and just boom.
Who did the guitar on that?
So the intro guitar, that that's a guy named Eric Borash, who is now famous as the guy behind Evo Customs guitar amps. In my mind, literally the best guitar amps on the planet. He was a live guitar player for me, he and Chris Respani. And he did that one night in rehearsal. And I was like, put a pin in that, Hoss. We're doing that from here on out. And so that became a part of the song. He overdubbed that. And then Chris Respani, who was just my pal who brought me up to Nashville, I shoehorned him onto the session. All these, triple scale session players, my buddy Chris. He's in the booth playing acoustic guitar, and the producer's just like, just let him have it.
Yeah.
Well, I got the engineer, Greg Droman, to allow me to take the session files home because I had a Pro Tools rig. And I said, just let my buddy Chris take a crack at some of these lead guitar parts because we weren't entirely happy with everything. Well, Chris, through a fucking Line 6 pod, played that guitar solo.
He did that. What a fucking perfect.
One take on his ASAT telly. That bend is him bending the neck.
What a perfect solo. Yeah. I mean, you could not make that any better.
The thing about Chris Respani, and nobody knows who he is outside of in Texas, he's doing really well. He's a great engineer, a great guitar player, a great keyboard player, a phenomenal bass player, a solid drummer, and just he's a brother of mine. I've got like 3 brothers in my life, and he is one of them.
That is so cool. And that's so cool that you brought him along.
I had to, man, because without him, I wouldn't have been there.
I know, but the fact that you did that, it says an awful lot about, you as far as like, in that peak moment, you didn't say like, hey, I'm here. You're like, hey man, this guy got me here. Let's go together, brother.
Yeah. Well,
that's really cool.
Well, and the other reason I did it is because, like you just said, you love that solo. Fuck, the world loves that solo.
Oh, my God.
I didn't bring him along just because I love him. I brought him along because I love him, and also he's a bad motherfucker.
Yeah.
So, he may not work the way you cats work, but just, give him 10 minutes. Leave him alone for just a minute. Let the man do what he does. And he wound up playing about 50% of the guitar solos on the record as overdub.
That's so cool, man.
At his house with no one present but himself.
What a story, man. That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Let's talk about your latest album, Lost in the Flood. I don't want to butcher his name, but how did you get hooked up with, you say it?
Amund Morud.
Amund Morud. How did you get hooked up with Amund? Because there is certainly no shortage of guitar players in Nashville.
Absolutely, but there's no one in Nashville that plays like Amon Morud. No one.
He's in Finland or Norway?
He's in Norway. He's just north of Oslo. He grew up on a farm, and but he was playing. Norway has, and Americans will laugh at this until they go to one. There's this massive blues circuit in Norway. Norwegians love blues music, and you're like, oh God, what's whiter than Norway?
No, because I've talked to guys who've played blues fest in Norway, and I've interviewed a ton of guys from Northern Europe, the Netherlands, Sweden. There's some great music happening.
And if you shut your eyes, it's like, holy shit, am I in Chicago?
Right.
Am I in Memphis? What's happening? Are we in Austin in 1979? And so Amon was playing the blues circuit at age 8.
Wow.
Yeah. And he's only, I think he's close to 10 years younger than me. I think he's 39, 9 years, I guess. But he was a blues like wonderkind, all up into his 20s. But by his 20s, he was kind of fatigued, and he was listening to the Black Keys. He was listening to Queens of the Stone Age. He was into some more avant-garde kind of stuff. And he started making records that were trying to fuse that together. I met him playing a festival over there. We kind of look alike. He's younger, so therefore
you know what, man? It's funny. You kind of you're similar in look. Yeah, it's quite funny. Yeah, you're both like sort of like, hard. Like, we're men. We're fucking men. you both have that
because we're so not.
You both. Oh, I know, but I'm just saying you both have that. Like, I'm eating leather for breakfast.
Yeah.
Look.
He's a little more macho. He's a little more macho than me. He did actually grow up on a farm, working a farm. But yeah, we a mutual friend of ours, a lady person, introduced us because she wanted a picture of us together with her between us. Do that.
I'm going to leave that right there.
Yeah, just leave that there. That is as far as it went, I can assure you. But we met casually. I went and saw him play, and I was freaked out because his brother was on drums. He had a pretty good-sized band, a second guitar player, bass, some horns, a keyboard player. And it was music that I had never heard before. And his brother plays weirdly, and he plays weirdly, but he looks like he's dressed like a rock star, and he has all the moves, but his tone is just fucking America. And it just sounded like nothing I'd ever heard. And I was like, I want to be in a band with that guy. And that was cool. 2012. And by 2016, we finally had started playing some shows together and stuff. And we just became, he's another guy in my top 3. He's my brother, Our families we've been on like 3 family vacations together in Europe, our families.
Oh, that's cool as hell.
Yeah, so we're like really close.
That's nice, man.
And so we cut half of that record was cut live on the floor, writing it as we played it, this EP at his studio in Norway. And then the other half was done back and forth during this lockdown. Over the internet, he'd send me tracks, I'd add to it, I'd send him tracks. There was one song where he's not on the track at all, but it's a song I started writing at his house in Norway. So I was like, fuck it, this goes on the project.
Which song? I tell you, my favorite song is actually the opening song, "Bad as Me."
Thank you. That was a fun one. Yeah. That's he and I on guitar. I play the dumb guitar up front. He plays the cool guitar that comes in after.
It's a great song, man. I really dug it. And I also like the last song, Jesus on the Radio, man. Talk about that.
That was written and recorded Easter Sunday, 2017. We played a show the night before in just south of Oslo. We drove back that night, stayed at his house, got up in the morning. We're at the studio by about 10:30 in the morning, and just had that do 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 groove. And he was like, "Where do you want to go from here?" And I said, "Fucking nowhere. I want to stay right there for like 8 minutes if possible." And we started putting bits and bobs on it, and I started scribbling some stuff down, and I just went on the mic, and the vocal is one take, and I wrote it there on the spot. And then his brother was coming by later in the day, and that's when he put his drums on after. The drums went on after.
The lyrics of that are pretty cool. Tell me how I'm supposed to go and how I'm supposed to feel. I broke about 1,000 hearts. You got the only one I can't steal. That was pretty cool. What's the backstory to that?
Well, it's Easter Sunday, man. I love religious metaphors because they resonate with me because of my upbringing.
Sure.
I also think they resonate with a lot of people.
I think you're right. Except me, obviously.
No. It's a very opaque lyric by design. It's meant to be hard to decipher, and I'm not probably going to give you the carrot you're looking for here, but it's a bit about how to resolve where you are, how you are, and who you are in the whole scheme of things. And it's also conflating Jesus with the woman I love, which I think is a sometimes healthy thing to do. You put her on a pedestal and occasionally you crucify her just in case she needs it, you know. But she always gets back up. So, you know. The whole song is kind of playing with all that stuff. It's, but I'm rather loath to explain myself.
No, that's cool, man. Now I'll ask you this one. You can pass on that or whatever. The first song, "Bad as Me." I'll drag my ass through broken glass to taste her salty skin. I'll sell my future, burn my last if she'll let me in again. That was pretty intense. I was just curious. Was that a real experience or?
Sell my future, burn my past.
Burn my past. Sorry.
Yeah. That lyric too, I wrote that song playing that bass line, which is kind of that weird atonal, like what key are we in? And I sang that kind of live off the top of my head, those verses while I was playing it, just with a drum pattern that I'd created. And I think what it was just kind of that, it's just violent language about how much I would self-immolate to just be with her. Like, I don't give a fuck about anything except her. What if I have to crawl through broken glass, if I have to sell the future, burn everything from the past? It's kind of just lust on 10, you know, deeper than lust. It's like passion, but you have, you know.
I get it. I totally
it's really visceral. It's not intellectual at all, and sometimes I love just being completely visceral and of the moment.
Great. Are you kidding me?
About love songs, because love is insane.
This is great.
Love's nuts.
I can't believe that you just like. Again, I'm not going to sound like I'm blowing smoke up your ass, but I mean, this is why you're a talented dude. You just like wing this. That's pretty fucking difficult. I mean, these are great lyrics.
Well, I mean. Well, thank you. Well, I'm a big fan of editing too, you know, but I think a lot of us, I experienced that when I was co-writing in Nashville a lot. People wouldn't throw out a line because they were afraid of being, they were going to be embarrassed or someone's going to shoot it down. And it's like, I get that. I shared some of those insecurities initially, but if you're going to write good music as opposed to just formulaic music, you are going to fail. You're going to look like a fool from time to time.
You're generally not going to get it right the first time around either. I mean, who the fuck?
It's the cost of doing business, man. I mean, but that's why so much commercial art isn't good, in my estimation. It's palatable, it's catchy, it's nice in the background, it's not offensive, it doesn't cause you to have an opinion on it, and it's always been that way. It's nothing new. The really popular stuff can be quite blasé. It's beige, it's wallpaper, it's Windows 95, and it's totally
There's the lyrics. Those are song lyrics right there, man.
It's totally functional, but it's utterly not inspired.
Totally. It's like lukewarm.
Yeah, so it's like, when I write with people now, which is very seldom, but I have some international people that'll get online and write with me. and they'll be intimidated. Some of them will be intimidated at first or whatever. And I'm like, look, dude, just because I said a line doesn't make it good. Most of the lines I come up with are in the fucking trash can.
Right. People don't realize that.
Yeah, I've written like 1,000 songs.
Yeah.
And there's like 100 that people have heard, if I'm lucky, because most of them were shit.
You know, Jace, people don't realize that about success in general. I think people have this, and I think it prevents people from doing things that could potentially make them successful. They think, I could never do that. Well, neither can the guy or the gal that did it. It took 50 times to get that out, you know, whether it's writing or a business thing or whatever, man. And I think unfortunately, it's a short-sighted move.
Yeah, there's a great anecdote about Leonard Cohen told about he and Dylan, and Dylan asked him one time, how long did it take you to write Hallelujah? And Cohen said 6 years, because there's like 87 verses to Hallelujah, and I think there's 4 or 5 on the record. But he said 6 years, and he goes, how long did it take you to write? I think it was Blowing in the Wind, and Dylan goes 5 minutes, and that's the truth. It doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It just means the approach is different. And Leonard was a very controlling writer and a very methodical writer, and Dylan is not. Dylan's genius was just seat of the pants in the moment, and sometimes most of the time it was great, and occasionally it was crap. And Leonard would slave over a song for years, and it could still be a pile of shit at the end.
Right.
You know, the key is there is no formula, there is no approach. There is simply what works for you that day on that thing. You know, when you're talking about practicing arpeggios on guitar or the piano, there are some things you should do that are kind of according to Hoyle, unless they aren't. Because the way Stevie Ray Vaughan plays guitar is wrong, unless you're Stevie Ray Vaughan, and then it's the only way to play the guitar, period.
Sure.
So what works for Joe Satriani doesn't work for JT Cornfloss. Well, JT Cornfloss has been on lots more records than Joe Satriani.
Oh, yeah.
They're different things, man. So just let everybody be what they are. And the way I write songs works for me. It may not work financially for me all the time, but it works for me as a creator, as a craftsman.
Yeah.
But it's not something you can package and say, do it this way, Bob, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. So you have your Ylem, your record. It's called Ylem, Ylem. It's a great record.
Elam, actually.
Elam. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's a weird
there's
word.
More things I can butcher here.
Well, to be fair, I'm throwing words that don't exist at you, so it's
Elam. All right. So it's a record Jace put out recently in 2020. So this is what I thought was interesting. The first song on the record is called Anxiety Part 2. And what I thought was funny is that, like, I'm not OCD in the least bit, but I would imagine if you're OCD and you open the record with a song called Anxiety Part 2, that must cause you anxiety. Was that done for that?
That's part of the joke. I mean,
it's hilarious.
The way that song, because what happened was I actually, and I talk about this a lot, probably annoyingly so, but I suffer from depression and generalized anxiety, like diagnosed by a doctor. I'm on medication for that. I take 20 milligrams of a pill called medication called citalopram every day, and that really helps me. It doesn't numb me. It's not an a true antidepressant. It doesn't change me. It just means that when the anxiety hits, which it still does, it's more manageable. Before I started taking that, I couldn't just do the breathing exercises or whatever to get to a good place. Now that I take that, I can just do the holistic things. That gives me like a head start.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you sharing this because a lot of people suffer from anxiety and depression. And I think the more people that are so open to talk about it, it becomes not a abnormal thing. It's just a thing that, you know, a certain percentage of people, you know, have to deal with.
Well, I spent a good 15 years trying to be macho, and I'm from Texas, and, you know, just, well, you know, don't be a puss, man. Just walk it off, walk through it. And eventually I just got to the place where it's like, you know what? I'm not man enough to do that. Apparently.
Well, you need help.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just a matter of realizing that all that macho bullshit was just that. And there's chemicals in my brain that I can't control, that this 20 milligram pill doesn't control, but it can make it manageable.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm so loquacious. I say 12 words where one will do.
No, just keep doing what you're doing, man. You're great.
But I was having a massive panic attack laying in bed. It was 3:30 in the morning. I wake up having, you know, the feeling like you're having a heart attack, shortness of breath, tingly extremities, just
holy shit,
for no discernible reason, you know. And so rather than get up and have a big shot of whiskey or take a Xanax, I'm like, no, dude, this is before I was on medication. You're gonna figure this out. At the time, my studio was upstairs in my house, so I went upstairs, and then I just started building the synth patch, and it turned into that song. I just composed that kind of there and then, and I call it Anxiety Part 2 because it was like the second stage where I was still in the attack, but I was attacking the attack. And I was trying to force myself with these long harmonic stretches, you know, like going over the bar line, not playing to a click, not thinking about meter, just be like, no, dude, none of that matters. Everything's nebulous and amorphous, and just be here. And it kind of talked me out of it. Shortly after that, I got on the medication, and then I made the rest of the record after the medication. And so
this is a fairly recent thing with you finding this medication.
Treating it's not a recent thing, but treating it. I think I believe it was February of 2018 that I started taking the medication.
Wow, good for you, man. I'm happy.
Maybe 17. I can't remember.
You're able to get something that helps you out.
Yeah. It's been a life changer for sure. But the whole record, I'm a huge Brian Eno fan, Harold Budd, all these guys that aren't, some of them like Brian aren't even musicians, yet they make so much music.
Yeah.
And most of my friends are vastly superior players to me on any given instrument. I'm a decent bass player. Keyboard, I'm mediocre. Guitar, I'm mediocre. I'm a composer.
But you did it. Whatever you made these sounds on, though, it came out great.
Thank you. Well, it's, you know, it was all in the box. It's all synthesizers that I would, you know, write my own patches and then treat them pretty heavily. And, you know, I study the Brian Eno stuff. So it's like, yeah, it's a DX7 patch, but then it was run through this guitar amp, and then it went into this pedal, and then they mic'd that guitar amp, and then they flipped the tape over backward. You know, all this stuff where it's like, it's not even recognizable now to what it initially started as. I really enjoy sound design in general. And the past couple of years, I've just been educating myself on it as kind of I don't play golf, you know, so this is what I waste my 4 hours a day on.
Dude, the record is phenomenal. I mean, it is really, I really, really enjoyed it. You know, I'm not a guy to sit down and listen to ambient music, but I'm like, man, I can listen to this for sure now.
Well, I think the key is to make it an EP, so it's not too long. I think, you know, about 20 minutes of ambient music is usually enough for most people.
It was, I really dug it, man. It was very, I found it was actually very moving and melancholy at times, you know, which I like that kind of music, you know. It especially when it takes you out of that stage, you know, you're in it, but it brings you out of it, and it's very cathartic for me anyway when that happens.
Yeah, my wife and I were talking about that the other day. When you're really sad, you go to listen to sad music.
Funny, isn't it?
You don't listen to happy music to get you out of it, because when you're really sad, you want to know that you're not alone. You want to know that there's someone else that feels just as shitty or maybe even worse than you. And so you go and listen to them, and it weirdly makes you feel better because it makes you feel less alone.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do an ambient project hopefully every year. It'll probably be every 2 years with my time management skills. But
no, I think you should, because I think you found a groove here in a stride. It's great. It was really, really nice to listen to, man. And you clearly like it.
It's fun to do.
Beyond Bad Things, how'd you get involved with licensing?
Because of Bad Things. It was the golden carrot where people were like, well, that was successful. Let's call the guy. So it's a double-edged sword in that to get another theme song will be difficult, if not impossible, because that one did so well, and that's fine. But people who want the thing I do, which tends to be melancholy, tends to be maybe a little spooky, a little dark, they'll come to me for stuff. I've had people ask me to write things for their project. Never once has one of those gone in that project, ironically. But everything it's so funny, man. I've had 4 people say, can you write something for this thing? We're looking for this kind of deal. Okay, I go and do it. Doesn't get in. But that song winds up getting placed elsewhere. I guess just because I'm thinking, this is not about the song, it's about the visual. And so sonically and melodically and rhythmically, this needs to undergird. It's secondary. And so it's a different thing. To have a featured song in a show, Your Man's been in a bunch of shows, and it's in there for the meet cute, the sexy time,
Yeah.
But it's
the sexy time. What are you, Borat?
but the sexy time with my wife. But that's a different vibe. Most of what I've gotten has been underscore kind of vibe. Even if there's a melody and a lyric to it, it's still underscore. There might be a voiceover going on, or they're going between scenes. And I will say, the most satisfying thing is to have another singer want to record one of your songs. That is cool. That's a huge ego boost. But the second coolest thing is to have one of your songs featured in something that's cool, that you're like, oh man, that's cool to be a part of that, to have my music, for them to say, this thing that I've worked so hard on, I want your music to help support it. What shows have you been in that you felt they were really cool, that you felt like that? Oh God, don't ask me questions like that. I have to remember things. True Blood, obviously. I had tons of stuff in True Blood that wound up being really cool. There's and
let me just clarify, because Jace is a stickler to this. It's, I want to do bad things with you, not I want to do bad things to you. So whatever happens in your house is none of my business, but that's the lyric.
What's funny is the original lyric was to you for about 5 minutes.
Really?
And I realized, this sounds a little rapey. Because the impetus,
because it's consensual now. If we're going to do with you, total different.
This is like the Dylan story. The song took like 10 minutes to write. There's nothing to it. It's 2 verses and no chorus.
That's so funny.
But the song initially was inspired because the guy I came up here to play bass for, he was fucking me around on my money, and he owed me money, and I was sitting there listening to a Steve Earle record. And I was playing along with it, and I took the Steve Earle song and made it minor instead of major. It's the exact groove, harmonic rhythm of this Steve Earle tune. People think I ripped off Chris Isaac. I totally ripped off Steve Earle, and I've told Steve that, and he was not impressed. Like, all right, man, what are you gonna do? But initially it was me wanting to go kick this kid's ass about my money, and then I realized, I was like, this could be sexy, which would be cooler than macho. So why don't I go the sexy route? And that's when 2 became with.
Yeah, that's pretty funny, man. We kind of went through this, but any low points? Jace, or dark periods you've had to deal with, and how'd you get through them?
Most of them.
Most of them.
It's baseline dark with occasional blips of hope.
I hear you, man. Baseline dark. Tell me one particular thing that you had to deal with that you were sort of like, you got something out of that.
Oh man.
Because you always, I mean, as much as it sucks, that's you get something out of the dark times. You don't, when everything's working smoothly, the lessons really are not there, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, we learn from pain. We are just mammals after all. Losing the, just keep it on the obvious, losing the record deal and the publishing deal, consecutively. And feeling like things were about to really open up for me, and then everything just fell apart kind of overnight. And I was in a marriage that was profoundly unhappy, concurrent with that. And that was a really dark time. And kind of what brought me out of it before the True Blood thing happened is I booked a tour with a real hero of mine, a guy I'd written with some. A guy named Guy Clark, who's a famous Texas, Nashville singer-songwriter. He just passed away in, I think, 2017, May of 2017. And but he was a real hero of mine and a very intimidating person. He was a big man, and he was a bit of a scary man. He was a heavy drinker, drugger, wild man, but also brilliant. And he had a UK tour coming up, and I was like, hey man, you need an opening act? He's like, well shit, why not? Why don't you do it, son? And I got to go tour the UK opening for Guy Clark after I'd lost my deal and before True Blood. And that really, besides being a boon to my self-esteem, having Guy say, yeah, you're good enough. It really helped me get a toehold in the UK before True Blood happened, which helped. I'd only done about 6 shows in the UK up to that point. And so I kind of had a toehold there. So when the show happened, I was able to pivot and use that as a launching pad. So that was a dark time that was made bright by another person. Again, it's the kindness of others and the opportunity others bring to the table can often be the catalyst for positivity.
You've since toured Europe quite a bit, like on your own.
Yeah, far more than I do the States.
Yeah,
sure.
You're a multi-instrumentalist. Is there any instrument you're partial to playing? You've mentioned bass a bunch of times. I'd imagine that's your.
Simply because it's the only one I'm good enough on that people might pay me money. And I did a couple of summer tours with Tonic in the past few years as their bass player.
Did you really? That's funny. Who is the guitar player? I had him on this. I know him.
Jeff?
Who?
Jeff?
No, maybe I don't.
Are you talking about Chris Nix?
Yeah, Chris. I know. Chris played.
I got Chris that gig. He did that gig one summer before.
Yeah.
Before he started doing the John Davis stuff.
Good guy. Really good guy.
He's a monster guitar player.
Oh my God, yes.
He guy's a monster. I sang a few tracks on his new solo record that were really fun.
Did you? He was. I saw him when he came down here. He hung out a little bit. When I saw the show with Jonathan, it was just mind blowing how good he is. Yeah,
and in that band context, you don't get to see him, shred or anything. It's all about textures. And I always tell him, because the shredding kind of irritates me, honestly. But his clean tone. The clean tone that's in his fingers is, to me, he's right up there with that cat, Dominic Miller.
Totally from Sting.
But Dominic Miller's clean tone, it's a fucking mezza boogie he plays, but that clean tone of his is just crazy. And Chris is much the same way. His clean strat is one of the prettiest sounds that you'll hear.
Yeah. I've seen him do his solo stuff too with his Trip and the other guy, I can't think of his name.
Yeah, the Triplets. Yeah. Chris
the Power Triplets.
Power Triplets.
Power Triplets thing. Yeah, and he kicks it then, man. He does.
Yeah, he's a beast.
What's your favorite song you wrote and why?
I don't know if I have a favorite one. You know, it's like naming your favorite kid in a way. I mean, I have songs I hate that I wrote, for sure, but it depends on when you ask me. You know, sometimes I'll love a song because of the craftsmanship of it. Sometimes I'll love a song because the recording really captured it. I really love um, uh, In the Garden, which is a song off my Terra Rosa record that's long and ponderous, and most people skip it. But it's that whole record is 11 songs based upon Bible stories, and that's the story of Adam and Eve, sung from Adam's standpoint,
In the Garden.
Kind of informed by a Mark Twain book, and the book of Genesis, and that one that whole record I'm probably most proud of as a lyricist. I did some high wire work on that whole album, and pretty much wrote most of it alone, and it's definitely, I think it's probably my best writing recording, and that's what, 2012, 2013.
2013, Terra Rosa.
Guess I better get back to work.
Tell me your top 3 Desert Island discs, Jace. No particular order, and just for now.
Abattoir Blues, Lyre of Orpheus by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Songs of Love and Hate by Leonard Cohen. And Apollo, Atmospheres and Soundtracks by Brian Eno and Dan Lanois.
Dude, that was very, very specific. Very. Did you have did you write that down last night or something like that?
No, you know, you always get asked that question, and I've always had different answers. But the truth is, if I only had 3 records to listen to from now until my death, those are broad enough, long enough, and diverse enough that I wouldn't kill myself immediately.
Best decision you ever made?
Choosing to be a father as opposed to just a sperm donor. You know?
I do understand that, man.
I've got a stepdaughter now that I also make that choice with, and it's definitely the most rewarding and the most important choice that I've ever made for me.
And I'll tell you something. My older son is 30, and I had a birthday recently. They came over, and he gave me a card, and I just totally broke down when I read what he wrote, and I just went over, gave him a hug. He goes, "Dad, I love you, man." And you know, fatherhood, as you know, is kind of a thankless job. Parenthood, you know, and I was just so happy to know I got it right, or I got this part of it right, and it was so rewarding for me to know that, you know.
Yeah, watching your kid succeed at something, to me, is just. I mean, my son just bought his first house last week.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
And I have mixed emotions about it because of the specifics of everything. I have my concerns about it, per se. At the same time, he can afford it. He didn't buy a show place. He bought something that was reasonable. It's going to be a great long-term investment. He doesn't have a kid on the way. He's not married. Basically, he's way ahead of where I was at the same age, which is really, God. That's the metric.
Yeah.
If your child is doing better than you were, you are crushing it.
I agree with you that, man.
So yeah, it is a tough gig, but man, isn't everything worth a fuck really hard?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But to get that, and because I had such a bad childhood, and I'm always like, you know, like, please just don't let me fuck this up. I want to just do better, you know. And
were you worried that you wouldn't know? Were you worried that you wouldn't know how to be a parent because maybe you didn't have a good example?
That's a very interesting question. That's a really good question. I read so many books on parenting because I had to get educated on it somehow, and that's kind of lame that you have to read a book how to be a dad, but I really read it more like to find out subtle things, was I worried? I don't think I had the time to worry. I always took that, and I was talking to my son about this, I felt that responsibility of fatherhood was so heavy, probably because it was like I didn't know what I was doing naturally, but I took that thing so seriously, and somehow, and I know I made mistakes along the way, but somehow my intentions carried through. So I don't know how to answer. I'm not avoiding.
No, you don't have to, buddy.
Question. It's a good question.
It's not a binary question, or it requires a binary answer. I mean, it's just, I know mistakes my dad and my mother made in raising me, and I tried not to repeat those. And yet I know I repeated any number of things because the flaws that I have, I see many of those flaws in my son. And
so your son, yeah.
Some of that's genetic, and some of that's because I didn't teach him better,
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, you get for your son to come over and say, "Dad, I love you, man." I mean, that's it. That's the touchdown. That's the Super Bowl. That's the fucking money. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, because I was just blown away what he wrote. Because of course I feel this way, Dad. I mean, I love you, and I was like, oh my God, I was just broke down, and I wasn't prepared for that, and it just meant a lot to me. I felt good about us, but I felt good that, man, all that work and responsibility, I guess, I felt good about it, that it paid off a little bit.
That's good, man.
What's that?
It's a mitzvah.
Most important things you've learned about yourself.
God, that's a long list, and growing daily. That my perception of what I said, what I communicated, is not necessarily related to what I actually said and what I communicated to the people who received it. That's something I know that's a shitty, complicated answer, but basically what I'm saying is, just because I think I told you to go over there and grab a glass of water, you might have heard something like, "Hey, asshole, go get that glass of water, you piece of shit." and I'm like, "What are you talking about? I didn't say that." Right. Sure, it sounded like that, pal. So I've had to learn that about myself, that I can come off a lot less loving and charming than I think I am.
But then at the same time, some of that is on the other person, and some of that could be on you. Yeah.
But what I have to learn is to take responsibility for the part that is on me, and it's just been in the past 2 years that I've really not just intellectually accepted that, but emotionally felt it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, you can always know something intellectually, but then to really, for it to resonate, it has to go down to your lizard brain where you feel it, Totally. And, I finally, the woman I'm married to, she came more from your kind of world where it was just not a good childhood. I came from this nurture, everyth's wonderful world. She came from this get the hell out of here or I'll smack you kind of world. And so her way to move through the world and my way to move through the world can really come at loggerheads. And because I come from all this love and sweetness, I assume that's all I'm emanating.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Because I'm very alpha male too. And so I can come off as a real fucking prick to the person I love most on this planet.
I totally get that, man. We've worked through stuff like that, my wife and I, over 28 years. Over 28 years.
We're only 5 years in, but we're getting on it. It's been difficult work, but man, is it rewarding. It's just to really realize, oh wow, I'm making this harder than it needs to be simply by not paying attention.
Yeah, but when you connect with someone like that over stuff like this, that's pretty special. Not many people do that.
Oh, she's the best. She might be my best decision ever made.
All right, tough question. What do you like most about yourself?
That is a tough question. What I hate most about myself is a long list.
Yeah.
And I do have that in alphabetical order or in order of hatred, depending on how you'd like to
in order of hatred.
What do I love most about myself? God. I'll say this because it's not something that I've done. It's just something that's in me that I worked on not at all. This is not something I've evolved to. It's how I came into the world. I get it. I forgive very easily. I have a really quick temper, but I can forgive somebody whether they ask me to or not without breaking a sweat. And again, that's not some enlightened position I hold. It's just
that's good for you.
Yeah, it's just in my DNA, and it saves a lot of mental jewelry being carried around of all this bitterness and resentment. You know, I just don't have that.
No, that's fantastic. That's really good for you. You have any hobbies outside of music?
Man, you know, I was playing soccer with my son up for a while there, and of course blew out my knee a few weeks ago. I don't that are really qualified as hobbies. I love this, what you and I are doing. I've got friends in England and Norway and Australia and here in the States where the one thing that's happened during this COVID that's been good for me is I'm getting to have one-on-ones with people I love like this that are in a way kind of more intimate than if we were in the same room together because there's no distractions. We're like, no, this is our time, so let's do it. I love that. I do love reading books a lot. I know that's boring.
I know that's boring.
It's like, it's not a hobby, you fucking nerd. But for me it is. I've got kids, so most of my hobby time is spent being a dad.
Right. Favorite place you traveled?
France. I mean, I've been all over the world, and I could live in France tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you like most about it?
The food, the culture, and specifically, I mean the south of France. I don't mean Paris, although I love going to Paris, but I love the south of France. The people are a little more warm, a little less of the stereotypical snobby French.
Sure.
The French really aren't snobby. They're just exceptionally direct.
Germans are very direct too.
Europeans in general, besides the Brits,
the Brits. My wife's from England. I go there and they're like horrified at the shit that comes out of my mouth, and I'm like totally mellow now, man.
Yeah. Well, you're hanging out with the wrong Brits. The next time you're over, I'll tell you who to hang out with. They love the shit that came out of your mouth. But yeah, I love Western Europe in general, and Greece, Spain, Italy, the Scandinavian countries, Ireland, Scotland. I fucking love Scotland. But if I had to live somewhere, I'd probably pick the south of France.
South of France. That's cool, man. Just two more questions. Toughest decision you had to make or most difficult thing you had to do, Jace?
Oh, God, I don't know. That's hard. Probably my second divorce.
Oh, you've had two.
Yeah, I'm a third time's a charm, Hoss.
Fuck, man.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I'm not afraid of commitment. Or at least making them.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's gotta be a tough one, man.
That one was brutal and painfully expensive.
Oh man, I'm sorry you got to go through that. Oh God.
I'm sorry we both had to go through it, you know?
Yeah, man. And the last question, man, I just want to thank you very much for being so cool, so nice, and so open, and just really easy guy to talk to, and thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, well, and forgive me for this is probably 3.5 hours long, so you may have to break it into,
No, it's interesting. It's only bad if it's boring. It's like a song. How long does a song need to be? Well, as long as it needs to be. If it's not starts going south, it's probably too long.
Well, I apologize to your listeners for being a bloviating asshat, but it's
no. Biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that has been intentional and how much has just been a natural part of aging?
I think it's mostly a natural thing. I am this may sound a little weird, so forgive me, but I have historically been very driven by my appetites, whatever those appetites might be, and those appetites tended towards the fairer sex. And that has dissipated by choice. Definitely, it was definitely a desire for it to dissipate, and I think being 48 has helped it dissipate. But yeah, I'm just not so obsessed with charming every woman I run across throughout the day. It's just some insecurity on my end that I just felt the need that all the girls should like old Jace, whether they needed to or not.
I think they should. You're a fucking hit songwriter. You're a good-looking dude. I've never had that problem. Let me tell you, I'm one of those guys. And my wife is gorgeous, but it was my personality. Believe me. But I think everybody should like Jace. So I appreciate
liking me is fine, but needing different people's approval to bolster my self-image is not exactly healthful. So
hey, somebody loves you long time. Man, let me tell people what you got going on, and because I want people to listen to your music. All right, first of all, you probably know Jace from writing the song Bad Things. In general, he is an amazing songwriter. This guy is a very talented guy. I would not say it if it wasn't true. He's really a great songwriter. He's got 2 recent records. I'd go through his whole catalog. That's what I did. I really enjoyed it. Let me just make sure. I'm going to look for Amund's. Jace Everett and Amund Morud.
Amund Morud, but
Amund Morud. I mean, I only wrote it down.
There you go. You got nailed it. 100%.
Amund Morud. And it's called Lost in the Flood. It's a great record, man. It's a very cool record. I love the song Bad As Me. Jesus on the Radio is good. Cold Dry. There's a bunch of great songs in there that I really genuinely enjoyed. And I would also check out Elam, which is his ambient record that he just released. It's got 7 tracks on it, and the first one's called Anxiety Part 2. Everything about the record's cool. Even the cover is kind of like ambient. And I hope you come out with some more ambient music. He's also got some great singles. Dig It Up was a single that came out last year. Woke Up in This Town came out last year. Love's Not What We Do. And I think Jay said they're all from Dust and Dirt.
Yeah, the last 2 are from Dust and Dirt. It's kind of hey, look at that. I'm getting a call.
And also, how dare they? And also, if you are interested in working with Jace as like a collaborator, or if you want to hire him as a consultant to help you do some songwriting stuff, or if you have some questions of how things go, songwriting, publishing, he's definitely been around the block, been there and done that. You can work with him. Go to his website at Jace Everett, JaceEverett.com, and you can contact him there. I will ask you to please be specific, respect his time. If you've got some stuff that you're looking to work on, send a link and, hey, here's what I like about what you're doing and why I think you'd help me. Just because if you give him some information, he can come back and make a logical conclusion and decision with you and have another question to say, hey, well, how about this? Whatever. To get some dialogue going, that would be really good. And it's not every day you could work with Jace Everett. That's right. He is,
every other day,
sick in his stomach listening to me promote him, but too bad. I'm only saying it because it's true. Anything else, man, that I forgot or missed or anything else?
Man, I think we covered more than we needed to. But I sincerely, I've enjoyed listening to you and watching. I've watched 3 or 4 of the of the shows you put on YouTube, and I've listened to even more than that. And it's really cool what you're doing, man. Getting on folks that maybe don't get the primetime slots. So I appreciate you doing the long form interview and really talking to people, and especially to me, of course. It's a privilege. It's an honor, and I hope your audience enjoys listening to it as much as I did doing it.
Likewise, man. Thank you for everything. Hang on, let me wrap up, and then you and I'll connect. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. And what you don't realize is Jace is just out of major surgery, and what a champion he was. Thanks to Jace Everett for spending time with us. Again, check out Lost in the Flood and Yalem. Great records from Jace Everett. And if you're looking to work with Jace as a consultant, hit him up on jaceeverett.com. Most important, man, especially nowadays, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar or whatever it is you do, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I am out. Jace, thank you for everything, brother.
Thank you, brother.